Yo, what's good? I just wrapped up a podcast with Omid Scheybani. Omid, this was a long one, guys. I think we went for about 2.5 hours. So if you want, break it up. But I love to just show everything that we talked about. Omid is a very interesting businessman. He's a global citizen. He's a photographer. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Omid Scheybani.
In the land of China, people hardly got nothing at all.
No possessions?
And in China, they never go to church.
No religion too?
Or do magic.
Well, it's easy if you try, Dick.
2, 1. Okay, we're live. Omid, thank you for coming. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Yesterday I saw on Instagram you were doing it was like a mini speech about employer branding. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so there's a company called Universum, and it's a startup with locations all around the world. And one thing they're really known for is a study they do with students about kind of the most popular, most attractive employers in different sectors. And they had an award ceremony where they wanted to award some of the companies that won in China and were among the most popular companies to work for in China. And as part of that, I was invited to talk a little bit about my experience as someone who has worked for both startups as well as large tech companies and someone who has worked in the US and in China. Talk a little bit about my experience when it comes to employer branding and what employees care about today when they choose an employer.
So were you representing many companies, like your past experience, or were you representing one company?
Actually, I told the story of how I ended up getting into Google.
Oh, okay.
And I was actually telling this kind of journey of, this is like 2009. I was just graduating with an undergrad degree in business administration. And my goal was really just to get into consulting. I think students like who study for 3 years, they don't know much what they're good at or what the possibilities are out there. So they go with what they know and what they can measure. So for me back then, it was, I only knew the companies that were on campus, mostly consulting firms and investment firms. And the thing I could measure was salary. So I wanted a good brand and good money.
Sure.
And that's why I wanted to get into consulting. But 2009 was just the peak of the crisis, and most of these companies were not hiring.
Right.
So I was just like bouncing from one internship to the next, hoping to bridge the crisis until the situation would get better.
Right.
And then, I remember 4 or 5 months into my internship journey, friend of mine, a classmate who had graduated with me and then started working for Google, was trying to pitch me the idea of working for Google. And Google, I mean, you knew Google. This is 2009, so
Sure,
you use
knows,
it, you know it. But I didn't have this perception of Google as an interesting employer.
Really?
No, really didn't.
Today, I think people would be like, oh my God, Google.
Absolutely. Today, it has changed, and it has also
It's
changed.
10 years ago, I guess. So,
Yeah.
it's, like YouTube is relatively on the rise, actually, like only started in 2006. It's like,
That's right,
definitely
yeah.
a different brand 10 years ago than it is today.
That's right. Yeah, I think there was definitely this like interesting halo around, working for Google, but coming from a business school at that point in time, it really wasn't a thing. It wasn't that established among the circles.
Wow, that's so different.
Yeah, now looking back, I feel very
that's funny,
similarly.
that's funny.
It changed a lot over the years. But I remember asking my friend how much he makes, and he told me his salary, and I was like, there's no way I would want to work for the salary.
It was low.
It was too low, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was comparing it with
Other
consulting
research that you've done
salaries,
at
yeah.
different consulting
Yeah, so the
salaries.
brand was there, but the salary wasn't really what I wanted.
Okay.
So I kept doing internships until 2 months later, I realized this is not going anywhere. The crisis is not getting any better.
Yeah, you might as well take a full-time job rather than being an intern.
Exactly. So I was like, I told myself I'm just going to do it for a year. And then I was so obsessed with this idea of working for McKinsey or BCG or whatnot.
Are those consulting
Yeah,
agencies?
these are the kind of the top two, I guess, consulting firms. And I remember telling myself, and even like talking to my parents, like, okay, because they were like, you need a job, just take this job. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this for a year, and then I'm going to leave and going to go into
something
consulting.
different.
But then after a month of being on the job, I realized, no, this place is too good to leave.
Right. So
And I
the
ended up
culture
staying
there
6
was,
years,
was
yeah.
really good. Is
The
what you're
culture was
saying.
fantastic. I mean, after a week or after a month, I knew this is like an incredible place to grow and really work with really cool people and really cool things. And I think one thing I wanted to kind of highlight in my speech yesterday at this event was I stayed on for 6 years. And funny enough, the reasons I joined Google for were very different than the reasons why I stayed at Google. And I think when it comes to employer branding, a lot of the people working in HR, they don't sufficiently differentiate between how do we need to position ourselves? Like, what are the things that people want to come to us for? And what are the things that people will stay on for? And these are sometimes very different things. Like, I ended up going there because of the brand, and I ended up staying because I had this amazing manager who was pushing me a lot.
So you felt you were learning a lot as you were there. It was a great growing experience.
Exactly. But this manager, the reason why I stayed on for 6 years, I could have never even known about like before I joined. So I think I was trying to push these recruiters and HR executives to think a little bit more about attraction being one thing and retention being another thing.
Retention.
Because very often when you look at these studies that are published by Deloitte and even Universum, the company that is soon releasing a study themselves, it's all about like, what are the top 10 things that millennials and Gen Z young people really care about when it comes to the workplace. And then they come up with things with like sustainability and like growth and startup like atmosphere. And then they try to tick all these boxes, but they don't sufficiently differentiate between like, okay, what attracts someone, what makes someone stay. And also to think a little bit when it comes to like hiring people, you know, it's not just about you having your laundry list of we are great because we do these 10 things, but it's also about understanding the complexity that each applicant has. And that's kind of what I wanted to convey with my story. Like, I was a graduate from an undergrad business school, and you probably would have looked at me just like any other undergrad or any other applicant, but my story was so complex. My journey was so complex. Like, what can you do as a recruiter? What can you do as a company, as an employer to account for that complexity and not just like hit me with a list of like, we are great because of these 10 reasons.
Yeah, for me, my experience, I've been working with a company called Push Media, and it's like small. It's just, 10 people, and they're all foreigners. Like, I was friends with them before I started working with them. So I've never been in an environment that has a big corporate structure, and I felt a little limited, like as if I'm not really going to grow that much because, you hit a certain point.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm hearing from you is an experience at Google just unlocked like a little potential and vision into what's possible in the future. So maybe you could speak a little bit about that, like how, like, did you plan out what's going to happen next, or as you were at Google, or did you like, it just happened as you went?
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. My, graduating from that undergrad program in Germany, which is, by the way, where I was born and raised, I think 85% of my classmates straight went on and did a master's degree.
Oh, okay.
Without any work experience in between. But I knew, okay, I want to have some master's degree at some point, but I want to have worked before that.
I wanted to mention that, like, because so many students, they have all this education in the classroom, but it actually is so different compared to working in the workforce.
Yeah. And I wanted to be able to sit and be surrounded by people that have work experience and can contribute to the classroom discussion based on real life work experience.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to kind of be in that position myself to have something I can relate to and something I can contribute to. So my idea was always, okay, I'm going to work for a few years. I was thinking of like 2 to maximum 4, and then go do my MBA, a business school, like a proper business school degree. But I don't know. I was with Google, and kind of one opportunity led to the next, and I was continuously being pushed and nurtured by really great managers throughout my entire experience there, and it just was a place that was very hard to leave. Not necessarily because of the perks or kind of. No, again, not the perks, the foosball table or what have you, but
that kind of environment. Yeah,
which is kind of what a lot of
people just see from an extra, like, even there's a movie called Intern, and it's like, what's his name? Not Will Ferrell. The dude with the nose. Owen Wilson. The dude with the nose, Owen Wilson, and some other guy, and they be interns at Google. Like, Google has like very like soft power in a
Yeah.
sense of like a place that like, wow, there's clouts around just working there, which
Yeah.
is so fascinating.
Yeah. So the reason I ended up staying there for 6 years really was because amazing people, amazing managers, amazing projects. And that's the reason why I didn't know I would stay there for that long. And I didn't know I would go through the stations that I went through, which was kind of 2 years and year and a half, 2 years in Dublin, in Ireland, and then another 4.5 years working in the US for the Latin American market. But it just came as it came. And just a funny side note with Owen Wilson, someone did the math of how much he earned for every time he says wow.
Yeah, I think I saw that as well. It's like in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, like I don't know the number, but it was like they looked at the percentage.
They calculated it by like how much he gets paid for the movie, and then they broke it down by like shooting time, and they somehow calculated like second by second.
No, I think they did. They looked at the total scripts of all the words he said and how many of them
you
were
can divide by
wows.
Words. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And then they were like, okay, he said wow, maybe like it was every like 300th word. And that makes about like, I don't know, $20,000 every time he says wow.
Insane. Before we dive more into working at Google, because I definitely want to ask more questions about that. I want to, because what did you go to school for? Where did you grow up?
You mean so I was born and raised in Germany, in a small town of 25,000 people in the outskirts of Nuremberg, which most people know from the Nazi trials of 1946. Or we also know for having the nicest and largest Christmas market.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in Europe or maybe the world. I don't know. And I don't want to.
They're really trying to change that brand perspective.
Yeah, from Nazi trials to Christmas markets.
That's a nice shift.
Yeah, quite the pivot. Yeah. So grew up there, and I don't know. I was really into film actually and media production.
Okay.
But my parents kind of pushed me more towards kind of, you should go study business, because if you do media and production, there's like no future in that industry. So
you're jumping to college. I want to talk about even, your younger days, like you're from Iran or like heritage wise.
Yeah, my parents are from Iran. Yeah.
And you're growing up in Germany.
That's
outside
right,
of Nuremberg.
That's
I wanted to touch on the earlier years before we dive into that. Like, what was that like?
Wasn't easy. I think my parents did an amazing job of making sure that I'm both well integrated. But
did you speak German?
I do.
And you still speak German?
Of course.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm born and raised, right?
Yeah, because you don't even have like any hint of a German accent, actually.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? For some weird reason, the 3 of my past 5 podcasts have been with 2 of them were Asians who grew up in Germany.
Really?
And now you're the third who's like, this is very strange. Anyways,
did they have German accents?
Yeah, and they have a bit of a German accent.
Okay.
Like Kylie and Kiki. Actually, Kiki hasn't come out yet, but so anyways, it's just very bizarre. So you're growing up in
it's a secret power.
Yeah.
I can blend in and no one knows. Neither do I look German.
No idea. I didn't even know till right now that you spoke German. I just knew that you kind of grew up there.
Yeah. So I think my parents did a really good job at kind of making sure I'm integrated. I remember they sent. I mean, we celebrated Christmas. We're not religious at all, but I think by way of being from Iran, there's kind of a little bit of aura of Islam in our household, because like I think Iran is a country where Islam is so integrated into the culture. So even if you're not religious, even in your kind of spoken language, there's things you might say. You might say inshallah, and it basically just means hopefully, and it has a religious reference. Because it means like if God wants, right? Like if God willing, basically. But you don't necessarily,
right?
You don't mean it religiously, right? You just mean
the culture, I guess.
It's just part of speech. So, and I think there's more elements like that that we had in our household. But my parents weren't religious at all, and they weren't forcing us in any way to follow any religion. But I think one thing I really appreciated is my parents encouraged me to participate in Christian musicals and biblical musicals, or even go to Catholic religion classes at school as a way to the reality was like we are.
So growing up, you didn't subscribe to a Muslim.
Not really. I mean, I was open to it. I learned about it.
But your parents kind of subscribed to the Catholic.
No, I wouldn't say they subscribed to something, but they were like, listen, like we come from a country that is mostly Muslim, or like it's an Islam. It's called the Islamic Republic of Iran, right? Like it's in the name. Of
I
the
can actually
country.
speak to that a little because my girlfriend is Turkish,
Got it.
and the way she's explained it to me, like even though like I don't know if it's the same for Iran, but the way she explained it to me in Turkey, like you don't necessarily believe in Muslim ideology, but you are technically Muslim just because you're from Turkey.
Yeah.
Is that similar to how it is in Iran?
There's a bit of that. I think it's something I've been like kind of struggling with a little bit because I'm not religious, but by way of saying I'm Iranian, I think people project that on me that
Right.
I'm Muslim,
Mm.
and I've been trying to understand like to what degree am I Muslim just by having parents from Iran, which is a Muslim country,
Right.
and I personally I'm making the cut. I'm saying I'm not because I this is apart from what I think of the religion, you know, the good and the bad. But this is just like I'm not religious, period, and I'm also not Catholic,
Right.
or Buddhist or any other or Jewish or any other religion. I just
Sure.
not religious, period. But I think coming back to kind of my upbringing, my parents were very open-minded. You know, we ended up celebrating Christian holidays more than we celebrated Muslim holidays, and they were very open with like me learning about Christianity as a way of saying, you know, hey, you were born in this country, you're gonna live in this country for 20 plus years, so it's important for you to know what the religion of this country is and what people here believe. And that was really, this open-mindedness was something that I really appreciate in the way how my parents kind of, you know, thought about my upbringing.
Yeah. For me, I actually can relate a lot because my father is Jewish, so I have the last name Greenberg. And everyone's first question is like, "Oh, are you Jewish?" And it's like, okay, when I'm younger, I like it was a very annoying question because I don't know, like, but I would say like what I've come to the conclusion is like I'm not Jewish because I don't believe in that, or that's just not the way I live my life. Like I don't go to church or synagogue or whatever, but just because you have the last name, you can be considered Jewish. And there's this strange thing I heard that if your mother is Jewish, then technically you are Jewish. But if your father is Jewish, then you're not. So I
was going to ask you, is your mother Jewish?
No, my mom's not Jewish.
Okay.
So then like, but I'm still debating in my head at the end of the day. But so I grew up in Long Island, and we went to this church called Unitarian Universalist. And I actually, you know, it was whatever, Sunday school. It's something your parents make you do. You don't think too much about it when it's happening. But I'm very thankful I went to that church because the way that they operate is actually every year you just learn about a new religion and you decide at the end what's for you.
That's awesome.
They don't force you to do anything. And then on Sunday, every week you go there, you do Sunday school and you're learning about these different religions. And then at 13, you have like the coming of age and similar to other religions. And you do a little speech on what you've learned. And that's that. They don't force you to do anything.
I
And
love that.
yeah, I love it too. And I hope, you know, I don't do any of that anymore, but I'm very thankful for that as a kid to have gone through that.
I think it's very important. Like this narrative of like, it's not even this portion of it's up to you to choose, but more like, you know, presenting them all as equal options almost.
Exactly.
As opposed to saying like, this is what you're supposed to believe in and this is superior.
Right.
And
If you put
even if
something
they
on a
don't say it,
pedestal-
it's superior. Like it's often implied. And like taking that out of the equation and just saying like these are the different religions. This is why we have religions, or this is why people have religions. And you should know what you feel most attracted to in terms of values, and go for that. I think that's a great approach. Or even giving someone the exit option of like, if you don't agree with this worldview, then don't. And I think it's funny, like. I feel like people nowadays, I don't know, I sometimes listen to podcasts and they interview like a 16 or 17-year-old. And then I'm thinking to myself before the interview starts, like, what would that person know? And then they start talking about their experience and they're so eloquent. And I'm like, I don't think I was like that when I was 16 or 17. And I think people these days are just asking themselves more serious questions at younger ages, and I think there's a lot of people who are capable of making that decision for themselves.
I think it has everything to do with information. The amount of information we're able to take in today is like tenfold compared to when, I mean, I'm 27. I don't know. How old are you?
I'm 32.
32. So almost in the same like generation. Like I barely grew up with the internet, and you probably didn't grow up with the internet at all, right? Like let's say until 15.
Yeah, until 14, 15. I think.
So like these kids right now, they grow up with an iPad in their hands. And they just have all this information flowing, and you can Google and you can watch YouTube tutorials on anything. So it's just, a different world. And I think that is, for me, if I had to make a guess, that's the reason why that 16-year-old is able to be so like eloquent in an interview
and informed and has opinions. And I'm like, wow, like I don't think I had such opinions. Yeah, that might be the
I
case.
had opinions at that
Yeah.
age. I didn't really know.
There's something funny when you talked about kind of our experience with the internet. I remember dial-up modems.
Sure, I do too.
And the sound. It's funny, if you go to YouTube and search for dial-up modem sound, you can actually like
you can
find
a video with millions of plays. People are like, remember, kid, this is what I listened to.
But I remember waking up early, and our modem was in our hallway, and I wanted to connect to the internet, but I didn't want to wake up my parents on a Saturday morning. So I remember just taking my pillow, connecting to the internet on my computer, and then running to the modem and just like putting the pillow on it and like sitting on it.
Oh my God.
So my parents wouldn't hear the modem dialing up. And then kind of once it was connected, I would go back to the computer and start browsing the internet. But
that's amazing.
That's kind of what we used to do.
Yeah. I can remember it clearly. It was in my kitchen and I would try and load it up, like just make that loud sound. And I can even remember the first time I'm trying to like look at websites. I could be wrong, but some of them were in like black and white. Like I'm talking like late 90s, you know, and it was just like, it's like a memory of a memory.
I think you have a black and white memory.
Yeah, I think I don't really know what's going on in my head, what I'm looking at, but yeah, that my first introduction to the internet was like my friends playing Sims. And I didn't have like a good enough computer to play the Sims, or it was probably my internet connection wasn't good enough. So I just remember being excluded from not being able to play the Sims. And then I never liked those games. What about you? What are your first memories of like what you were using the internet for?
Napster, downloading music.
Oh my God, I was using LimeWire. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. But I was an Napster guy. I don't know if was it two camps? Was it LimeWire guys and like Napster guys?
I think Napster was just maybe a little bit before LimeWire. And then, you know, maybe based on where you are geographically in the world, like some are used more than others. Yeah. So in Germany, it might have been Napster.
Probably Napster
and for me in America, it was LimeWire. And I just remember all these, like you see those memes and it's like 4_ like 50 Cent in the club dash like if
I
you're
know
a
that
90s
meme.
baby, if you remember this kind of stuff.
I know that meme, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
The other memory I have is just like Winamp and Windows Media Player and that visualizer it had, this crazy visualizer playing music.
Oh yeah.
Just like, I don't know, just fun memories actually.
So getting back to growing up,
yeah.
When did you get into film or photography rather?
Yeah, photography much later. Actually, I think my interest in content production started with film. And I think it just simply started with my dad having a camera that I would then start... A video camera, like a big one, like a chunky one. Not the shoulder, carrying on the shoulder type one, but definitely full in your hand, definitely larger than your hand.
Dad mode,
yeah, like exactly. Like the VHS home videos you would expect. Kind of that kind of camera. And I remember just like, I don't know, like with starting 14, 15, I would take the camera to parties and I would film. And then I would kind of cut this like 10-minute summary of the party, which consisted all of like people being excited, going to the party, people starting to drink, lots of alcohol, people throwing up, people making out in the corner with each other, and then just like funny people saying funny things. And then I would like cut this together. And then the following day, people would ping me like, hey, where's the video? Like, we want to see the review of last night. And it became like this ritual almost. And I had this, it's so funny. My friend Felix and I, we were like, okay, we're going to do like content production.
Right.
And we wanted a name for the company or for the production label. And we wanted something like that was powerful. So we wanted a fist. We thought like a fist.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you see where this is going, right?
Jesus.
So we're like, we want to, this is amazing. Wait. So we wanted a fist. So we had this like logo of a fist. I think we had the logo first before we had the name. And we ended up, this is like not so fluent English speaking German kids going with Fisted Films.
Oh my God.
Fistedfilms.com. I think that was the name we went for. The domain was available. Domain? We got the domain.
Wow, you could probably sell that for some money right now.
No, the thing is, at some point we gave it up. I think it is a porn. It is a porn domain now. So, yeah, but in hindsight, it just sounds like a very bad idea to go with Fisted Films. But yeah, it kind of makes for a good story.
What age were you?
I think we started at 14.
Okay, so you're doing this fun video project when you're 14, and VHS. How are you editing?
No, so this is a VHS style camera. Like that's kind of how I describe it.
But maybe it was like mini DV or something.
It was exactly. It ended up becoming. It was pre-mini DV. It was like mini VHS. I think that was
okay. And then it's like, because I even today will still work with a Sony VX, which has mini DV, and it's so like I had to relearn how to do it. You connect the camera to the computer, and then you literally let it play, and it almost screen captures.
Exactly.
And that's how you get it digitalized.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so that was the process
That was the process we did.
Okay.
I ended up doing over 100 movies like that.
Do you still have them? Like,
I have them, yeah.
Just somewhere, yeah.
On YouTube, but then put them private. So no one. So it's safe on YouTube. Or so I believe, but it's in private mode. But it wasn't just like these party videos. It was also I went to Iran and I made a mini documentary, which then was shown on film festivals and just like I was really into this like idea of like producing movies. And I remember growing up and Arnold Schwarzenegger was my idol and Steven Spielberg was my favorite film director, and I really wanted to make it big in Hollywood. But then my parents weren't really fond of they were not having it, so they kind of pushed me down the route of like, you should study business,
Yeah. Okay. So we're getting more into like, you should study business. Maybe you're graduating high school. How do you decide where to go to college? Did you say you went to Stanford?
No. So my undergrad was in Germany. It's a 3-year program of which 8 months of which I spent in Argentina.
Oh.
And as part of an exchange.
Cool.
And it was, I don't know, it was like a private business school, which in Germany you don't really have that. Like tuition isn't really a thing.
Right. It's like just afforded to
education
you by
is
the government.
Mostly free. There was a time when the government charged 500, I think, euros a semester, which is for 6 months.
That's how much I paid for my books, bud.
Yeah, that was a time when students protested on the streets and like they would take off their clothes and then like protest naked and say like, you're taking off our clothes, like we don't even have money for whatever. It was a lot of protests, a lot of how you say backlash. I think it's removed. How you say
repealed?
Repealed. To be honest, I don't know what the status is. But when I told friends like, hey, I'm going to the school and there's an application process and you actually have to pay $5,000, not just $500 for a semester, people thought I'm crazy. Like, why would you go to a private school? In a country where education is free. Well, it was a good school, and my parents. Was
it international? It was like in terms of like the community of students that you get to know.
Yes and no. So it wasn't like a very, very international school, but it had an exchange program, and every year there were a lot of international students participating.
So like the exchange program, was that a driving factor as why you would go there, or was it the reputation?
So I think it was very simple. My family friends of my parents, their kids.
Family decision.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it was like, you should go check it out. And they took me to the, and I think it comes back to like, again, I feel I was 17 and I didn't have much agency over my decisions or information.
So you're just going to let it, if you want to make a decision for me, I'm not that worried. The same thing happened to me. Like I was so fucking stupid. I just went wherever I thought the best parties would be.
Yeah.
I went to URI and then transferred after a year because obviously it didn't work out. And then I transferred to Champlain, which is in Vermont, and it's a much better fit and I learned so much more.
Yeah.
But anyways, you're going to this business school.
So my parents took me to the open house day. How do you call that?
Is it like a exchange?
No, it's just like a day with.
An open house.
Open house.
Call it an open house.
Open house, yeah.
Like you walk around and you do the
exactly.
tour. Okay.
And what I really loved was this kind of you can study abroad piece.
So you learned about that.
Yeah, and that was
house.
really what got me excited about that school. So suddenly I was like, okay, well, my parents are not supporting my plans to go into movie production. I might as well just like, this is a good school. I might as well just go there. And they have an international program, so I can kind of leave Germany. So what you need to know about my upbringing is growing up in Germany wasn't always easy for me. Just like any kid who's kind of, the son of immigrants or the child of immigrants, there was always this notion of like, how much are you local? How much are you kind of from where your parents are coming from and whatnot? And I always felt, I always had the struggle of fitting in Germany, and kind of being accepted socially, culturally. I think there was for a very long time this a certain image projected on me, like you're the son of immigrants. You like the most you can do is like this type of school. The best job you could possibly do is this type of job, and I
Really?
felt very limited in the society in Germany. I felt
What
very
did your
limited.
parents do for work?
My dad was an orthodontist.
Hmm?
He's retired now.
Okay.
My mom was a dentist assistant
Mhm.
and then ended up doing her own beauty spa.
Okay.
So I don't know. I think,
Because like I'm just trying to just figure it out more. Like you say, you felt limited, but maybe around you, like your parents seemed quite successful. So shouldn't that be a role model that like you're not going to feel so limited? Or?
yeah, but I think it's one thing what I feel. It's another thing how I feel society, what society is
Because
projecting
a
on
lot
me.
of times kids can be very persuasive in what they can say to you and make you feel like in terms of bullies and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, listen, one of my earliest memories, I would definitely say I experienced discrimination growing up in Germany. One of my earliest memories is coming home one day from kindergarten, the preschool, right? And my mom's telling me the story as well, like from her perspective. Like I was in the kitchen, I was crying, and I was pulling my skin, and she thought I had a rash or something, and she's like, "What's going
Oh.
on?" And I'm like, "I don't want the skin color. I'm too dark. People are saying too dark. I'm too dark." Like some kid at kindergarten said something, but it really got to me, and it was like, and I remember other incident maybe worth mentioning is. Going to clubs, starting the age of 16, you can go
Yeah,
out and go
yeah.
drinking in Germany. And I remember just being rejected at the door, not
Wow.
because of what I was wearing or whatnot, but simply because of the name I had on my German ID. They wouldn't say it, but it was very obvious.
Yeah.
You're a group of 5 guys, 4 get in, and you as the foreigner, you don't get in. So it's like experiences like that. And I was really fed up with, not fed up. I think I always felt there's more to see in the world, and I wanted to go explore that. And I wasn't really fond or excited about kind of the path that I had in front of me in Germany. And that's why this portion of like, hey, you can study here and you can go abroad, that was really exciting to me. That's kind of what got me hooked.
That's awesome. I think something I feel that anyone like you just told a story of hardship. And I think anyone that comes from a lot of the successful people in this world have come from hardship, like learning those tough lessons and
It breeds growth.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
do you have anything to say on that? Would you agree with that? Like
I fundamentally agree with that.
Yeah.
I fundamentally believe that hardship breeds growth.
Yeah.
And part of the reason of me being here and spending time in China is because life here is also not easy. There's a lot of things you need to figure out. There's like
Definitely. Yeah, that's
barriers,
a good
language
point.
barriers, there's cultural barriers, there's constant miscommunication. And that is a certain type of hardship which breeds growth. And I think that's something when I think of having kids one day, I want them to be successful. I want them to have, I don't want to say privileged life, but have opportunities.
Yes.
But at the same time, I also don't want to shun them from hardship. I want them to have some exposure to hardship.
Yep.
And not live in a bubble, but really experience kind of poverty. And if it's not, hopefully not on themselves, but at least be exposed to it and be surrounded with people who struggle. Develop empathy with these type of people, right? And just be close to that, and experience it as close as you can get without obviously, hopefully while maintaining
being in danger. You don't want to
being in danger, and while hopefully maintaining the opportunities you have.
Yeah.
I think that's very important when in personal growth, but also when I think of like raising kids one day.
This is the paradox of success. I see it often, like even with Kevin Hart in this recent interview with Joe Rogan, he was describing how like he went through tremendous struggle as a kid, but now his kids are just in a cushy little mansion in LA. So he actually would bring them to I believe it's Philly where he's from and show them. And the things he said that his kids would say was like, "You lived in that building? There's no grass. Like, where'd you play?" And he's like, "Oh no, son, I didn't live in that building. I lived in that little floor right there." And he's like, "You lived with other people that you didn't know?" And like, so it's just like, wow, like imagine having to show. So anyways, I think Kevin is on the right path to trying to demonstrate to his kids like what hardship was
Yeah.
and how they should be happy about where they're at.
Yeah. Very important.
Very important. I don't really know. I'm not at the stage where I'm going to have kids anytime soon. I think my parents did an excellent job. Like I grew up in Long Island where it's very easy to think you're like very privileged, and maybe I was, but I don't think I ever really knew it. And I think I didn't take advantage of those kinds of things. And I always still worked. I was a very average person. So I don't know. I can say I'm successful because I'm living on my own in China, exploring the world. Like that's success to me. So if I've made it to that, I'm very grateful for what my parents did. And okay, so I want to get back to you and Germany, and you're about to go to college.
Yeah. So kind of let me just continue with decision was made.
Yeah, the decision's made.
Decision's made. I'm going to
what
this
year is this?
college.
What year
This
do
is 2006.
2006, freshman year of college.
That's right.
Yeah.
3-year program. I'm very focused on my studies.
And you already choose a major. Like, how did you choose a major? What major did you choose?
Yeah, you had to, not major, maybe a focus. Major sounds
It's called a focus.
Yeah, it's called a focus. So I was like, okay, focus business languages. So you could choose between business law, business informatics, and business languages. I was like, okay, I want business languages. So I would study English in more depth than maybe some of my other classmates. And I would have to...
Is English your native language? It's not your native language.
It's not. No, German and Farsi are my native languages.
So German and Farsi, and English might be number 3.
English was
definitely number 3?
It was number 3.
Okay.
And obviously, in high school, I had to choose a second foreign language, which was French. So I studied French for 7 years as well. So I'm starting this program. I'm like, okay, I already speak French. My English is English is mandatory, and I'm also like learning it. Spanish. So I started with business Spanish.
Wow.
Actually Spanish to begin with, and then business Spanish later on in the process. You don't start with business Spanish. You start with Spanish. Hola cerveza, and then you go
Hola,
into
cerveza.
and then you go into like negotiating deals in
how
Spanish.
much it costs for the cerveza.
Yeah, exactly. Did this program, and whatever opportunity there was, I tried to go abroad. So first internship opportunity, I went straight to Spain. I wanted to work in a Spanish-speaking environment. And
what year of school was this?
This is after the first 2 semesters. So this is
okay. So basically,
summer
your
of
third
2007.
semester. Oh, so even like in between semesters, you did a summer program.
Summer, yeah.
That's great. At my school, they didn't encourage internships until like after your 3rd year. In America, you do 4 years, I guess, of school, and then after your 3rd, that's when they start to be like, okay, maybe it's time to consider an internship.
Yeah, no,
I think that should be
very
done.
different for us.
I think it should be done as soon as possible.
Yeah. I don't. What would you do the summers between 1st and 2nd year?
You'd fuck off and just go like party, and it's kind of silly to do that. Like it's too long of a break. 4 years of college is too much in my opinion. Like I mean, not too much. Like it's just depending on what you need.
Yeah.
So I think like a 2 or 3 year program is much more beneficial if you all keep it more tight with less breaks in between.
Yeah. So the thing is, it took me a long time to really understand the U.S. system. I even still confuse freshman and senior,
freshman, sophomore, junior, senior.
Okay, exactly. But it was a good program, and again, I used every opportunity to go abroad, either for my internships or for that semester abroad, which I then decided to spend in Argentina. Because I really wanted to kind of experience Latin America a little bit more. And
they speak Spanish down there? Or?
They speak Spanish, yeah. So fun fact, generally speaking, Brazil, most of Latin America speaks Spanish except Brazil. In Brazil, they speak Portuguese because there used to be a Portuguese colony. There's a country in the northern part of Latin America where they speak Dutch.
Okay. Oh, really?
Yeah, because it used to be a Dutch colony.
Huh.
I forgot the name. It starts with the S.
Okay.
And if not mistaken, there's also a very small part where they speak French because it used to be a French colony.
Interesting. Like natively, or like that's what people learn growing up? Or?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But most of Latin America speaks Spanish.
Yeah, I would imagine most of Latin America speaks Spanish. So you're down in Argentina. Like, what was that experience like going there?
Amazing. So this was an absolute game changer for me. This is my first time living abroad by myself after having spent 21 years in Germany, struggling with this identity question of who am I? How German am I? Am I Iranian? What am I? And then trying to suppress all these like ways how I was different, right? Like it was my time in Germany was all about trying to fit in, trying to be as similar as possible as the others were, try to not stand out. And now I'm in Argentina and I speak Spanish, and people are like, wait, you look Iranian, you say you're Iranian, but you're also German because that's where you're coming from, and you speak Spanish. Like, what's going on? And I realized how people were reacting very positively to that. And for the first time, I'm also realizing, man, like being different is not bad. Being different is actually pretty cool.
That's a game changer.
And it was a game
sure.
changer for me. And that's when I decided, okay, once I'm back, not even once I'm back, starting now, I'm just going to invest more in being different. I'm not going to invest and try to be the same as others. I just want to invest in being as different as I can because that's my advantage. And I'm going to build that out because I am already different, and I'm not going to suppress any parts of me that are different because other people don't, because people think it is different than what they expect or what they used to. So it was a game changer for me. Going to Argentina was a game changer for me.
I completely agree. People love originality, and nothing is original, but collaboration creates an original product. For example, like you're Iranian growing up in Germany, like that's like a collaboration, like from a business standpoint. Like if you look at it like that, so you're like creating different things around you. And in that case, if you dig deep enough, it can be original when you dig deep enough to their core about like their upbringing and their surroundings and their culture and what they've experienced. So I definitely believe in that as well. Like being different as a kid is hard. You don't understand, like you want to be the same as everyone else. As you grow up, as you just said, like, so this happened to you in Argentina. For me, being different, when I realized like that's a powerful thing to take advantage of, it probably goes back to like when you're like being called Jewish or like, and people just don't understand. And like, there's a stereotype against Jews in America. So like you deal with that as a kid and you're trying to figure out like, wait, why is this bad, air quotes? Like, I don't understand this. Like, I think for me, that's when it happened, but not as serious as a level as you in Argentina. And like, you're a little more mature than I am in say like 8th grade or something. Yeah. So getting back to, you leave Argentina at this point, you're getting ready to graduate. You're looking for internships and you do some internships and then you end up at Google. So I think you took like a business development role at Google. Was that the first job you got or?
Yeah. So I was lucky when I applied to Google. I think most of my peers who started working for Google in Ireland, which is kind of where the European headquarters were.
Oh, really? Ireland? I think probably for tax purposes.
Yeah, for tax purposes. I would say for 3 reasons. Main one, tax purposes. Yeah. Second one, talent. I think Ireland over the years has attracted a lot of European talent. And when you think of a location where you open up your European headquarters, you want to have access to Italian speakers, Spanish speakers, French speakers, Turkish speakers, etc., etc.
Wow, so it's a very international community in Ireland.
So over the years, because of the tax breaks, more international companies came. They attracted more international people, and then the cycle began, right?
Wow.
And then the other thing is, most of these tech companies have their U.S. headquarters on the West Coast, right?
Silicon Valley.
Exactly. And Ireland is in Europe so far west that the time difference with San Francisco is just 8 hours versus if you take London, the time difference would be 9 hours.
Yeah, it's a little better.
It is a little better, marginally better, but still allows for 1 hour more overlap.
To make or break communication.
Exactly. So there's a few benefits of being in Dublin. And I applied, and most people that go there start working on the ad sales side of the business, working with Google customers, helping them drive ad revenue, adopt new ad products, help them manage their campaigns, make them spend more on advertisement, and so on and so forth. Thankfully, the recruiter, Noel, that got my resume, he looked at it and he's like, okay, this guy is interesting. Like, he speaks English, Farsi, he speaks Spanish and French. Maybe we can put him into this new division where we're actually trying to start a new business within Google. Back then it was called Google for Work. Nowadays, it's called Google Cloud. And we're starting this new business. This is 2009. We want to take these products from the US market, bring them to the European market. Maybe this guy is a good profile for that.
Wow.
And I ended up interviewing for a team that didn't exist at that time.
That's amazing.
So the people who interviewed me were the engineers working on the product.
Wow.
Because there wasn't anyone yet on that team to sell the product or start developing the business around it. So they're interviewing me, and I remember I told you the story of like I did the Google gig only because I wanted to bridge the crisis. Like I ended up going to those interviews not because I was keen on this job at Google, but because I was like, okay, whatever. I'm just like, this is interview experience for me.
Yeah.
And they're paying for my flights to Ireland. Like, that's
Let's
great.
go.
You know, I had a friend there, the one who referred me. So I was like, I'm just going to go visit my friend
Why not? Take a
Nico.
little vacation.
Yeah, that's how I looked at it. So I remember going to the interview with like ripped jeans. And
Oh my God.
yeah, you would think like you dress up or
Yeah.
you try to like look serious or whatnot. I just went there with like, I don't care attitude.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be the right attitude, because now imagine these engineers are interviewing me. And they're like, so yeah, what kind of coding languages do you know? And I just like, I did like, I don't know any coding languages.
Yeah.
Like if
Why
you want,
fake it?
yeah, like if you want someone who codes, that
That's not me.
it's
Yeah.
not me. And I think I really believe in hindsight that these engineers, these 4 engineers that interviewed me, they knew they needed a salesperson, but they also didn't know what a salesperson is like or what that person needs to be like.
Yeah.
But they saw me and they were like, yeah, this guy is a little cocky, and maybe he's, you know, the type of person
Maybe
that
a
we
little
need.
Steve Jobs-esque.
Yeah.
You know, like just don't give a fuck.
I wouldn't compare myself with.
I'm not even.
But yeah.
I don't, but the
Thank you, Alex.
the mentality of like the non-traditional route, I think a lot of people can appreciate.
I think they saw something, this indifference that I had, the way I came across, ended up playing in my favor, to my advantage, I mean. So I got an offer, took the job, and after a month I decided, okay, this is the place I'm going to stay on for some time.
Okay, so you did work there for 6 years, and I want to dive into like even just a deeper, I mean, a very basic question. Like,
Yeah.
if you could just tell me like everyone knows what Google is.
Yeah.
But from an insider, like if you were asked if I asked you what is Google, what would you say on like to explain it to someone who knows nothing? What is Google?
Man, this is a tricky question. Like a lot of people, is it an advertisement company? Is it a tech company? Is it an internet company?
Yeah.
Is it a search company? I don't know. I think there's so many layers to that question.
Yeah.
But I think an interesting perspective to look at or to look here at is look at the core. Like the core mission of the company is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. I think that's really all these layers, the advertisement on top of that, the search on top of that, building hardware devices with Google search on it and Android on it and whatnot. I think it really comes down to this core of like, you know, we are a technology firm and we are striving to organize the world's information. Say
that one more time. We're a technology firm who's striving to organize the world's information.
Yeah. I think this is my spin on it. And nowadays, if you ask Google executives, I think they all say different things.
Yeah.
Because I also don't think there's a single answer.
This is a question that is almost impossible to answer, and I don't need a one sentence. I just love the idea of thinking, because like it's like, you know, it's so simple, but then when you the question is so simple, but then when you try and explain it, it's like, wait, there's 100 layers to this question, and it relates to everything technology right now, like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and YouTube obviously is a layer underneath Google. Have you followed at all what's going on with like deplatforming people? Do you know that term, deplatforming?
Deplatforming? Are you talking about breaking up Facebook into WhatsApp, Instagram?
No, I'm talking about like YouTube is a service, and people, I think, should have the right to be on there almost no matter what, unless you're breaking laws. Like you should have the right to be able to use YouTube. But these social media companies have, you know, recently taken the stance that they can deplatform people. For example, Alex Jones has been deplatformed.
Okay.
So maybe you don't have the best insight, but I'm curious if you followed it at all for, you know, what's been going on. Like what are your thoughts on, and the very basic question is, what are your thoughts on social media like applications as a a right, like an innate right as a human, or is it like a privilege? But these are private companies. Do you follow what I'm saying?
I do, but I have to be honest, I haven't really
You haven't thought too much
I haven't
about it.
thought about it too much.
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't know why it wouldn't be a right,
Mm,
but I also understand that there's limits
mm,
to the usage.
sure.
So banning an Alex Jones who promotes hate speech
Yeah.
makes sense. But there's like you bringing people together. You're allowing people to interact with each other, to engage,
Right.
to share, to create content, to consume content.
Mhm.
But you also need to have community guidelines. I mean, that's one of the main problems that a platform like TikTok nowadays or ByteDance. You know TikTok?
I know TikTok.
Yeah.
Douyin in China.
Douyin,
But
exactly.
what's breakdance? Or
A break. So did I say breakdance or ByteDance?
ByteDance. You said ByteDance.
I said ByteDance. ByteDance
Yeah.
is the company.
Oh, ByteDance. Okay.
ByteDance
It's
is
a
the company
that owns
behind
it
Douyin
and TikTok.
and TikTok.
Okay.
And one of the main challenges they face is really just content moderation.
Mm,
Like, what is like you going into all these different countries? TikTok is insanely popular in India, right? But it's a Chinese product, a Chinese built product.
mm.
And now you need to like develop algorithms and AI based algorithms that understand contextual issues
Mhm.
in India around politics, around
Ah.
nudity, around law,
Mm.
and design the product accordingly so that it works in that market.
Yeah.
But that's already hard in a market like China, where it's from. Even more in a market like India or Bangladesh or Sri Lanka,
Mm,
where the relationship with social media is just so different, right?
right.
We have, if you look at the US and Western markets, the main problem that people have with Facebook is privacy,
Mhm.
right? But if you look at markets like Bangladesh or Sri Lanka, it's not privacy. It's like it's the spread of rumors. It's the spread of misinformation. It's the fact that people use these platforms as it's a gateway to the internet.
Yeah.
They think of Facebook as the internet.
That's true. Yeah.
You
they
know,
do.
and you know, the challenges that these platforms have in those markets are much bigger.
Mm.
Because you know, I don't know if you've been reading the news, but there's a lot of cases where there's lynching going on, like mobs.
Really?
Oh yeah, like there's, you know, in a country like Bangladesh where you have a lot of ethnical tensions and a lot of religious tensions, rumors spread really fast
Oh, okay.
on these platforms.
Oh,
Like they
okay.
would say, you know, there's a shop where the owner is doing this and this, like they're putting like pills into people's food or whatnot. Like there's a lot of like cases documented like
Okay.
that. And then these messages spread. And then next thing you know is like people show up and are actually trying to confront the shop owner, who then has no idea whatsoever. There's lynching going on. There's like kind of mob-like behavior going on.
Right. So are you taking the stance that maybe these social media companies, like in this particular, let's use this as a particular example, like they can be somewhat liable because they allowed the spread of this terrible information.
That's what I'm saying. And that's, I
Yeah.
think, why rules around community engagement are very important. One thing that Facebook did, in this case, specifically WhatsApp, to kind of limit the spread of rumors,
Misinformation, yeah.
of misinformation, is to limit the number of times you can actually forward a message.
Hmm.
So in WhatsApp, there's now a limit of times how often you can basically kind of forward a message.
Interesting.
To basically avoid that, like you would take a message and just send it to like a gazillion different groups, and therefore
Just like spreads like wildfire.
exactly.
If you do that.
So my point, coming back to your question about like deplatforming, I think, you know, access is, I'm not sure. I don't have an opinion yet if it's a right or a privilege. But in community rules and moderation are very, very important.
Yes.
And that's something that a lot of these tech companies are behind on because of how complex it is.
Right.
But it is important, and I support kind of all the work that is being done, and also the enforcement of the rules that are being established. So if you say we have a red line around a certain type of hate speech and you have people doing that, then yes, they should be banned. Then I don't think it's a right anymore. In that case, it becomes a privilege that you lost.
Yeah. I don't know. I somewhat, it's a case by case basis, but I somewhat disagree. I think there needs to be at least a road to redemption. Let's say right now there's no road to redemption. for anyone, like I am a little educated in this because I listened to this podcast with Joe Rogan, and I think his name is Jack Dorsey. He's the CEO of Twitter. He was on, he was on for 2 episodes, and they went really deep into this issue.
Yeah.
And I agree, it's an extremely complicated issue. But okay, yes, there should be repercussions. You should be banned for X amount of time. But right now, Alex Jones is banned indefinitely for life. That can't be the right answer because like he's like forced to not be able to communicate with the world. So that's just my opinion. At least there needs to be a road to redemption. My own personal story of how like I'm an American, and I think in like my core, I just like believe in freedom of speech, and that's where I came from. So I was like a little more hot and heavy about this topic, but as I've gotten a little older and hopefully a little more wiser, I've come to think like the first experience I had was I posted a photo on Instagram and someone was wearing a shirt that just has Hitler on it. Someone was wearing a shirt that has Hitler on it. And that photo actually got Instagram deleted it. And I was somewhat furious because I'm like, are you just not acknowledging that Hitler existed? Like, what is your reason? But then the more research I did, I found out that actually in Germany, it's illegal to share a photo of Hitler. So when you're looking at these brands, these social media sites contextually globally, it starts to make a little more sense that my American free speech like mindset is not the most important thing, that you have to look at it from a global perspective. And I just feel like the more I look into it, the more confused I get. It's very, very complicated to really decide what's right.
And I think, the context matters. Laws, history, society norms matter. I don't think there's like these platforms are trying to, be attractive and relevant to a global audience, but they at the same time need to respect and accommodate for local nuances. So I don't think there's like a answer that works for everyone. Like you can say yes, freedom of speech is important, but then there's a but, right? It's important, yes, but.
Well, we have laws in America, like talking from in America, we have laws. Like you can't scream fire in a crowded room if there's no fire. You're going to cause a panic. And
I
people
didn't know that.
Yeah. Like there are laws, but people may argue that there's no such thing as hate speech. This is something that, for example, this dude, Steven Crowder, did on the side of the road in front of a Google office, actually. He set up shop and his banner is like, there's no such thing as hate speech, change my mind. And you would be surprised that a lot of people actually in the end agreed with him that there is no such thing as hate speech. He got to it's very provocative what he's saying. Of course, it's extremely provocative. And of course there are some things that are hurtful, but making something illegal to say is very dicey. Like it is illegal, as I just said, it's illegal to scream fire in a crowded room because you can cause people problems. But calling someone a racial slur, I don't think should be qualified as hate speech or illegal, because then you're like blocking, like that person should just be an idiot. They should be denounced by the people, not by a government. What do you think about that?
Man, these are tough questions. Maybe because I'm from Germany and I love rules and order, but
okay, so that
I think my perspective is like maybe a little different,
and
right?
There's no right or wrong answer here. These are exploratory questions.
Yeah.
I think it's just important to have these conversations and kind of just put it out there, because this could be the start of another podcast we have in the future where we decide to talk about this. So if you don't want to give me a hard answer right now,
I don't have a hard answer, but this is like me thinking out loud, right? I think, coming back to kind of Alex Jones being banned for life.
Yes.
I support that.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with someone who, this is my perspective, right? I don't think this person is contributing to society in a meaningful way. In fact, a lot of what he does is actually, I feel, very destructive by spreading lies, by, sharing what we understand to be hate speech, or most people would understand to be hate speech, by sharing conspiracy theories with the sole objective to provoke and provoke and get attention. So I don't think that person should be given the tools and the platforms and the access and the attraction that he wants. So that's my perspective. And it's not like he wasn't warned, or it's not like he didn't know this was coming. Like he poked
the bear far too many times, you might say.
Exactly. And I think if he starts a new program and this new program is fundamentally different,
No, he's not allowed to though.
okay, then
You say he's not even allowed to start over and have a shot at redemption. And you may argue like he already had those shots at redemption. He was given strikes.
so this is probably one thing I would look at it differently. If he came and I do believe in second chances to a
Yeah.
certain degree. Like if he said, okay, I want my InfoWars show back up because that's the name of his show,
Yes.
right? I would say no.
Mm.
But if he came and said, listen, learn my lesson. Here's a new show. This is what we're doing. I would say, okay.
No, but he's not even allowed to
I
have a
understand.
public account under
Yeah.
his name,
I
Alex
understand.
Jones.
Yeah.
So it's not even about business. Like I'm looking at it from the perspective of like back in the day, there's the public square and everyone has the right to come and banter with each other about what's going on.
Yeah.
But right now there's private companies, Facebook, Apple, Google. These are private companies that are deciding you're not allowed to be in the public square,
Yeah.
which is a government space, let's just say.
Yeah.
So that's where it gets very confusing
Yeah.
because
It is not an easy. Let me ask you a different question.
Mm.
The Spanish YouTuber who put toothpaste into a sandwich or a cookie and gave it to a homeless person,
I heard about that.
made it as a prank, made fun of that person, humiliated that person to a certain degree, and then justified it saying, jokingly saying, now he's gonna have, cleaner teeth or something like that. That person was banned for 5 years from using YouTube.
Is that the case of what happened? I heard
yeah.
there was legal. I heard he went to jail. I thought.
I think it was.
So the was this
he was
by
sentenced.
law
Sorry,
or was this?
I remember he was sentenced to jail, but in Spain, apparently, if you're being sentenced for less than 2 years, you don't actually have to go. It's gonna get converted on to probation.
Okay.
So he was sentenced, but it's probably gonna be converted to probation. But the ban of like he has to pay a certain redemption fee, or was it like a penalty fee, and also be banned for 5 years. That is the case. So what would you say to that?
Well, I want to know. Number one, what the government, the Spanish government, was involved in this. So he was arrested under the Spanish government.
Yeah, and under Spanish.
So if he
judiciary.
broke a law, then sure, like you should be banned. Like no, sorry. If you broke a law, you should be punished by the law. And I don't think they have a right to get involved with social media because that's a private company. So how is the government going to be able to get involved in a private company? And maybe I'm contradicting myself a little bit by saying that. And that's why I don't have an answer.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But I'm thinking like, okay, let's say you support a ban for 5 years, because I thought you might do that.
Okay. I am somewhat okay with a ban of 5. I don't, again,
but then
I'd
my
have to-
question would have been, okay, what's 5 years or 10 or 50 or 100, right? Like where do you draw the line?
Well, for example, the death penalty is illegal in some states in America.
Yeah.
So like if you can ban someone for life, like let's put the most extreme term out there, you're banning them from freedom of speech. Like whether you agree with that or not, like for hypothetical sake, you're banning their freedom of speech for life because they can't get on these platforms. But you don't even like take away their life, literally. So it's like, damn, there's got to be a different solution than banning for life. And that's how I feel. There's got to be a different solution to ban life, and I think you might agree with that at this point.
Like you need to read all the YouTube tutorials, and health center articles.
You're forced to do like
YouTube 101.
YouTube 101, and you have to go to all these programs. Yeah, that would be super funny.
I just want to say, I think it's it's an interesting discussion on a very complicated topic. One I feel where we both kind of thinking out loud. And definitely something where I feel I need to listen to more podcasts, read more articles, and to form my own opinion on.
Maybe next time let's bring some stats and we can like actually review stuff.
Yeah, that
could be a whole podcast.
It could be, yeah.
So I want to move on to kind of even wrapping up with Google, because you're wrapping up with Google, and eventually, like, how did you get to China?
Yeah. So how did I end up coming to China? So after 5-6 years at Google, I really wanted to go to business school. So I felt like, okay, I have enough work experience. It's time for me to get my master's degree. I ended up applying to Stanford Business School. I got in and decided to take those 2 years to pursue my graduate degree. So I did that. And during my time at business school, you need to know, during my time at Google, I was very much focused on the Latin American market. So after this 2 years in Ireland, I moved to the US for 4 years working for Google. And during that time, I was focused on helping the Google Cloud business kind of grow in the Latin American market.
Okay.
Partially because I had experience with Argentina and I spoke Spanish, but also because I had helped the European market, and the idea was like, we have a similar issue with Latin America. Can you help us, kind of grow the Latin American market? So I started doing that. I learned Portuguese. I did business in Brazil, did business in Portuguese, and by the time I was at business school, I was like, okay, I kind of got Latin America covered. I speak Spanish and Portuguese. I have work experience there. Asia is really the part of the world that I haven't done much with. I've done Europe, US, Latin America, but not Asia. So during my time at business school, I was very deliberate about exposing myself to Asia as much as possible.
That's interesting.
So whatever study trip, whatever student trip, whatever kind of internship opportunity there was, I really tried to kind of do it either in Southeast Asia or China or Eastern Asia with Japan and Korea.
And this is your time at Stanford.
This is my time at Stanford doing those 2 years.
So you're doing you said master's, I guess?
Yeah, it's an MBA. It's a master's.
MBA, you're exploring what opportunities there are in Asia. What was the first opportunity that came up?
So the very first opportunity was just spending a prolonged time in Southeast Asia before business school even began. Then there was an opportunity to go to South Korea, again, also before business school began, with some of my classmates as a study trip. So we would go to South Korea and study the market and talk to businesses and corporations and try to understand how they target the kind of the Korean consumer and whatnot. And on that trip, and this is again before business school began, one of the trip leaders, she's Chinese. She was one of the trip leaders. She was going to be a second year student. I was about to become a first year student. She was telling me, "Oh, this is so funny to be in South Korea because I'm also going to North Korea in 3 months."
Whoa!
And I'm like, "Wait, you're going to North Korea? Like, what trip is that? Like, is that an official trip?" He's like, "No way. Like, the school would never approve of that. This is like my kind of boyfriend Nick. They're actually now engaged. My boyfriend Nick, who's also a second year student, he is kind of an expert on North Korea. Like he has been there over 20, 25 times.
And he's South Korean?
He is actually American from New York.
Whoa.
Of Chinese descent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Super interesting guy. He like, I don't think he was like third or fourth generation American in like Chinese in America. And I don't think he grew up speaking Mandarin. But after his undergrad, he just came to China, started learning Mandarin, and started this tour company to North Korea.
No way.
Had a partner. They did collectively over 50 trips, or they were in North Korea more than 50 times. Had a fantastic network, a lot of connections. And Nick just said, "Listen, I'm in business school. I'm in my second year. I just want to take some of my classmates to North Korea."
Because he's got the in. Somehow he knows how to do it.
He knows how to get the visas. He knows how to organize the trip, what companies to work with, what places to visit, how to get you even beyond the kind of standard tour.
Wow.
So instead of just doing like 5 days in Pyongyang, the idea was like, how can we spend 10 days in the country, visit 3 different cities, fly domestically, just well, that's a whole different story. But so you asking me about my experiences during my time at business school with
I want to hear
Asia.
about North Korea, man. We got all day.
So that was,
so you're in South Korea. You're
in South Korea, and I instantly messaged this guy Nick. I'm like, okay, I want to join this trip. So I don't know, a couple weeks later on campus, I meet him in person. And he's like, "Listen, here's the deal. This is the deposit. This is what we're going to do. This is our itinerary. We're going to Pyongyang, and then we're going to taking the bus, leaving Pyongyang, which in itself is already something you need permissions for because the government really doesn't want you to. Pyongyang is like a model city.
Yeah,
it's
like
really built for kind of, displaying North Korea from a good side, but that's all relative, right?
Yeah.
But so leaving Pyongyang, going to different cities, and then taking a domestic flight to go to the kind of northeast of the country. And I'm like, I'm down, I'm game. I'm like, sign me up for that. Yeah. Funny enough, I remember talking to my mom, and I don't think my mom understood what I was saying, like, because her reaction was, "Oh yeah, you get, like, bring me some gift or something," right? Like, I don't think she fully understood. So anyway, a few weeks later, we're on this trip, and oh my God, the craziest thing happened. So we're on this trip. We're 5 days into this trip, and we have left Pyongyang.
Just keep your mouth a little closer.
Yeah, we have left. We're 5 days into the trip. We have left Pyongyang. We're about, I think, what is it, like 150 miles, 200 kilometers out of the city. And we're in this like small town. And we wake up one morning and we were supposed to take a flight, domestic flight that morning from that city to the northeast.
I didn't even know they had. I mean, how silly is that? Obviously, they must have flights there, but like, you never even think about it because you can never fly there. So you somehow get booked a flight.
Yeah, so we got ourselves domestic flights booked.
Wow,
man, I was scared as fuck because I was like, I'm
like, what kind of technology do they got? Like, what plane was it?
What
was
plane?
It? Like, what was it like? Even what was the boarding process like? Because you don't have a passport. They like you can't use your passport when your passport isn't recognized going in.
Yeah.
At least that's the way it is for Americans.
Yeah.
So how did you check in?
I wasn't worried about the check-in. I was just worried about we're a group of like 25 or so people. Yeah. Most of them are Americans. North Koreans are kind of
erratic, maybe.
That's a good word. I was going to say they're being told to fight the imperialist powers, Japan and like the US, and like I have this like kamikaze,
hostage full of.
I know. I'm not even thinking of hostages. I'm thinking of this like kamikaze
that
pilot.
Could be a movie right there.
You know? So I was scared AF, and I remember waking up that morning and opening up the window curtains and just seeing snow. And we gathered in the breakfast room, and we were told like, listen, we cannot fly today because the city is snowed in, the airport is snowed in. So at first I felt relief, but then the situation became just like a little bit intense because we're like, okay, we're in the city, we cannot take the bus back. The streets, we had to drive through mountains, and when you drive through mountains in North Korea, don't think of paved streets. Think of
you're on dirt roads.
This is dirt roads. This is dangerous. This is there's how you call that, like stone.
Stones can fall, like avalanche. Yeah, avalanche warnings in some parts.
All that stuff. And we find out that this was the heaviest snowfall since recordings.
Wow.
And
so it's snowed in North Korea.
It's snowed in North Korea. We're stuck. And not only are we stuck in the city, we're stuck in the hotel because you cannot just like leave the hotel, just walk and roam around the city.
There's like guards probably that won't let you out.
So we had 2 minders on the trip.
Minder. Okay, minders, so they're called minders.
Yeah, exactly.
They're with you at all times.
Yeah. It's funny. With the minder, I remember before the trip, I was thinking so negatively of them. I was like, these minders, they must be so like malicious and like vicious, and like I'm not.
They're actually extremely envious of you.
Man, these were nice people. Yeah. Like we ended up. I remember one guy was like Mr. Peng, and like he was like. It felt like he became our best friend, and we would drink with him. We would like look at his family pictures, and we would play him songs on our phones. Like, just because it was such a nice atmosphere. But this is like. This is like one example of like how I thought it would be versus how it was on reality, and like what we think people to be like, and what kind of how the reality turns out to be. Anyway, we're stuck. We're stuck in this hotel. We have the 2 minders, and we are at first there's relief, but then it becomes like we realize it's a very serious situation.
Yeah. What year is this?
This is 2016.
Okay.
Sorry, 15.
Okay.
This
15.
Let me think. Yeah, this is 15. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanksgiving 2015. And we're stuck. So a day goes by, second day goes by, with third day, some of us are like, okay, like what's happening? Like we're
3 days.
Like,
that's a long time.
Are we leaving? Are we taking the bus back? So taking the bus back is not an option. Then one of us, the trip leader, I think it was Nick or someone else, like they asked to go see the airport, like just like to see like what's the situation like at the airport. Just see it. Snowed in, and there was like I remember he came back saying like you won't like it's hard to describe it, but there were thousands of soldiers trying to remove snow with like almost bare hands and feet.
No tools.
Because there's no tools, right?
Oh,
so they're trying to clear this. We were joking, like, if you want to attack North Korea, you do it now. Because, like, there's nothing working right now,
during
right? Like,
the snowstorm.
There's no planes can take off. No helicopters can take off. Because
we were discussing...
Because we were discussing these options. Because we knew that, hey, we had like 3 more days on our visas. And the situation you don't want to be in is overstaying your visa while you're in North Korea. So we're like, okay, what are our options? So kind of, getting on boats was not an option.
You're landlocked.
We were landlocked.
Yeah.
Getting helicopters was not an option. We actually had our minders and the tour company reach out kind of to some military personnel apparently. That was not an option. So we realized, okay, we're stuck. So day 3 comes by and we're thinking and we started having this like cabin fever.
Yeah.
Where like, okay, we need to change our setting. We need to change our environment. So we actually changed hotels, which in itself is a crazy story because we ended up going to this place that we dubbed the Pleasure Palace. Because we walk in, it's this like very beautiful, relatively beautiful place in the middle of nowhere, close to the water. They actually like drove us a little bit closer to the water, to the shores. And I remember walking in and like realizing that that place didn't have any pictures of Kim
Jong-un?
Kim Jong not
Or
Kim
Il?
Jong Un, Kim Jong Il, and Kim Il Sung, the kind of the father and the grandfather of Kim
Yes.
Jong Un. And I remember asking our tour guides, not the minders, but like the trip leaders, like, hey, like I've noticed there's no, and they were like, okay, hey, listen, we cannot talk about it here. Later, it turned out that that place was a place used to be run by Kim Jong Un's uncle.
Wow.
The same uncle that was also executed very publicly, like dragged out of a meeting room and then executed very publicly because he was starting to kind of build a opposition against Kim Jong-un. And apparently this building was one of the places they used to gather, or this used to be a place where they would kind of get together.
Oh my God.
So that's what we learned later on. But we're in this like pleasure palace. It's day number 4. We call it pleasure palace because it had a bowling alley and I think it had a spa or something. I don't remember using it, but
it was a nicer facility.
It was a
than the
nicer facility than the
previous.
previous hotel we were at. Day 4 goes by. Day 5 goes by, and I think we were like 20 hours away from overstaying our visas.
Oh my God.
And we're thinking ourselves like, okay, like Nick and Matt and kind of the trip leaders, they kind of brought everyone together. And we had this like very Hollywood-esque moment of gathering in the lobby. We were like 25 people and we're having this vote. We're like, okay, we have 2 options. We stay and hope, like there's a small window of opportunity. It's not snowing right now. We could actually like take the 2 buses and ride back.
Yeah.
Back to Pyongyang, and then like we would buy new tickets and board planes and leave the country as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Or we just like we stay because it's like too dangerous. And I remember we had this like razor thin vote of like,
God,
okay,
there's
we're
a
gonna take the
difference.
buses and we're gonna go back. And so what was it, like 8 p.m. we're boarding these buses and we're riding back for 15 hours. This is like 150 miles. Like it shouldn't take that long, right?
Yeah, but they're dirt roads.
It's dirt roads.
Yeah.
Dangerous.
On mountains.
And then it's like all iced. Like it's icy,
my
right?
God.
And it's so fucking cold. And I just remember we couldn't sleep because you're just like in this bus and
Yeah.
you're shaking and left and right and there's no way to sleep. And I remember this one moment. It's kind of this really strange memory of me looking outside the window and realizing that there was a car. So there was a car parked. And I see this 2 guys. One is sitting in the car. The other one is like trying to fix the engine in the front. Okay. So the how you call that thing?
The hood.
The hood is open. He's trying to like, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And I remember we were driving so slowly. I remember the guy getting out of the car, going to the guy at the hood, telling him something or helping him with something.
Yeah.
And then trying to go back into the car and the door wouldn't open. And I remember seeing that. And I remember thinking to myself, these people gonna die.
Oh my God. They just got locked out of their car.
They got locked out of the car, either because they actually got locked out or because it was so cold that maybe the door froze or something. I didn't understand what was going on, but I remember just seeing that and thinking to myself, you guys are fucked. Can we take these guys? Like, I asked our minders, can we take them? They're not gonna, and they said, no, we cannot. So we drove through the night. We saw lorries that had turned over. We saw, like, I remember like it was like 2 a.m. at night. Suddenly I remember seeing, it was dark, right? There was only like the lights of the bus illuminating the street.
Yes.
And suddenly you see this row of hundreds of people, old men, women, soldiers with ice picks and shovels. Is
Sure.
that, yeah, like whatever they could get, and trying to like break the ice on the road,
Clear the
trying to remove
path.
the ice. And this is like in the middle of the night. And I was thinking myself, like, what's going on here? Is that, what kind of movie is this? Later turned out that we don't know the details, but they must have just been called in by their local authority. Like, hey, not there's like foreigners trying to get out of the country, but
but this is
just
an
like,
emergency situation.
Yeah,
People
like,
can't
clean
people
the
are-
streets.
Yeah, and so it was cold. You said
it was so fucking cold. It was
Yeah.
unbelievably cold.
so. People might have froze to death.
I try
Can't
not to think
speculate,
about it. Yeah,
speculate.
but
People may have. Oh my god!
it
So
was
did-
really a terrible situation. We made it like, I don't know. We got to the airport like 2 hours before departure.
wow.
And we flew to some random Chinese city just to get out of the country. And then from there, we kind of connected to either Russia, where some people were flying out from, Vladivostok,
Vladivostok, yes.
or from Beijing, where I myself flew out from. It was just, it was a crazy experience. But yeah, that was like some of the kind of, this is what you do when you say, this is what you end up with when you say, I want to expose myself to Asia more.
Wow, that is so that might be your first Asia story, you could say.
That was my real proper Asia story.
Wow.
That was,
Okay, so let's get back to South Korea. That's the real reason why you had come over here, and maybe we can skip ahead a little bit towards you graduate from Stanford.
You know, let me tell you one thing. So there was one trip that was a game-changing trip. This was my
Okay.
game-changing trip. The same way how Argentina was game-changing for my kind of
So
person. Yeah.
during your time at Stanford.
During my
you're
time at
saying.
Stanford.
Okay.
So I had a very negative impression of China growing up. I just, I believe what the media said, like dirty place, no manners, copying ideas, and so on and so forth. Like, I didn't understand how this place could offer any more than that. At the same time, I always like thought of myself as a very globally minded, open-minded person, and I couldn't reconcile with myself, like, how can you call yourself global while at the same time not having the courage or the interest to go to experience China? So I kind of forced myself to sign up for this China study trip.
Yes.
And this is now, we're talking here about March 2016, April 2016. I joined the study trip. So I came to China for 2 weeks. And my mind was blown on that trip. The rate of kind of the technological innovation, the 24/7 availability, the mobile first kind of mindset of applications.
Yeah.
Everything I saw here just blew my mind. And I just couldn't believe that I and so many people also in Silicon Valley for so long have been so dismissive of China. And that was really a turning point for me when I left the country and I said to myself, I don't know what's next for me, but I know China will be a part of my life going forward. And that's when I started learning Mandarin. That's when I started kind of exposing myself more to Asia, doing internships in Southeast Asia, trying to kind of, participate more in discussions around China, reading more books on China. This was a really game-changing trip for me. This trip where I came here to Shanghai, Beijing, and Shenzhen for 10 days, 12 days, experienced kind of the culture here, the business environment here, and realized that, this place is gonna take over at some point. And I remember going back to Silicon Valley, back to my MBA program, and we have some really good venture capitalists coming on campus and talking about the investment strategies they pursue and the investments they do. And I remember challenging some of them, like, what's your China strategy? What are you doing about China? How are you thinking about China? And none of them was able to give me satisfying answers. So nowadays you have some VCs, venture capitalists, that have offices here, or they do some investments cross-border. But I felt like a few years ago, the answers I got were very dissatisfying. Like, we have one portfolio company that is opening an office in Beijing. I'm like, okay, but that doesn't mean you have a China strategy.
Oh, it's completely
Or like,
different.
the partners in our firm have downloaded WeChat. And I'm like, you don't you don't have a good luck, by the way, verifying your account,
Oh
which
my God.
is a big pain. But you don't have a China strategy. And that's when I realized, okay, I feel in the short run, US has an advantage.
Yes.
In the mid to long run, China has a chance to take over. And I think that was the point when I said, I want to do more with China.
Very interesting. So you're at Stanford, graduating at this point, and is OFO your introduction to China?
No, man, my introduction was like, after all this time in the US, I felt some fatigue. I was I felt.
Oh yeah, before we get to China, I want to
Yeah.
talk about living. It's San Francisco,
Yeah.
and like because I mean, when you talk about political correctness, like that has to be one of the number one cities in America right now.
Yeah.
Where like you deal with a politically correct culture.
Yeah.
Do you have any experience? I guess you didn't really work there. You studied there, but it's
Well, I did.
almost the same.
I did work there.
Oh,
I did.
okay.
My 4 years at Google.
Right, so you did 4 years. Okay, so yeah.
So I was 6
talk
years,
about
6, 7
working in
years,
San
yeah.
Francisco and working in America during what people are calling like an age of too much political correctness.
Yes. So I don't have a problem with political correctness in general. I do think there's moments when things become. It's like a pendulum, right? Like it needs some swings until it can actually find its like center point.
Okay.
And I think we're experiencing parts of that. I think like my problems with like Silicon Valley are not necessarily political correctness. My problems with Silicon Valley are more about the homogeneity of thought. My problem is the lack of diversity in thinking, in races, in people. I think my problem with Silicon Valley is how privileged of a place it has become, and how the focus has become on solving problems, the top 1% problems for the top 1% of the people. I think there's a lot of talent there that is just investing its time on the wrong issues. You have such a disparity there in Silicon Valley. You have one of the biggest housing and homeless crises in the US. And at the same time, it's a place with the largest kind of billionaires per capita ratio.
Wow.
So it's just like there's something just culturally wrong nowadays with Silicon Valley and kind of the goals and the values it has. So my problems with the Valley today are more that it's not necessarily the kind of the PC-ness that exists.
Yeah.
So when you ask me nowadays about like my issues, it's more around that.
Yeah. After hearing your perspective, it might be a cop out to call political correctness the issue. It more stems from maybe not equal opportunity. You know, because like as you said, it's maybe, I don't know, from what I've heard, it's just like it's a male dominated world over there. There may not be enough representation from a female perspective or different cultural perspectives. And that perhaps is more the problem than just saying, oh, it's too politically correct. And yeah, I wonder, like, so do you think that?
I would agree with that. Yeah, I think, but I still think these are different. These are like, they're connected, but they're still different things.
Right.
Like, you know,
Okay.
There's one thing to say there's too much political correctness. There's it's one thing to say like, you know, the Me Too movement has taken over. Like that's just one thing to say, right?
Yeah. Those are alarmists, I would say.
Sorry?
That would be like an alarmist thing to say, like the Me Too has taken over.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, like maybe it is an issue, but if you're going to say like the Me Too has taken over,
I wouldn't say that, but I think there's like single incidents where, you know, I'm thinking of the Aziz Ansari case.
Oh, that's a very interesting
That's
one.
an interesting case where
Yes.
actually a lot of women came out afterwards saying, you know, yes, he behaved like a dick, apparently, like in certain, but
What right does that give you to like turn his life, like cancel him? Like
exactly. Yeah. So there's apparently this woman who spoke out against him anonymously. From what I remember, apparently a lot of women said like it's not right the way how this woman is now treating him in return for apparently what he had done. And I think some people were saying at that point, you know, we're becoming too PC. We're like this Me Too movement is taking over.
Yeah.
So I think that's one side of the discussion around culture in the US. The other one is just around kind of you know, diversity and the lack thereof.
Yeah.
So I think they're connected, but I wouldn't say they're two different sides of the same metal. I just think they're connected issues. Yeah.
Yeah, they're different, but they're a little connected. So yeah, I guess you had an interesting experience. Like you were living in San Francisco at an interesting time. And so did you work? Okay, so yeah, we talked about Google, we talked about working there, and now transitioning into your first job in China.
Yeah. So imagine I come to China and I'm thinking to myself, okay, there's going to be Chinese companies taking over the world. I mean, that's kind of my impression of China. And if that's really true, then if these Chinese tech companies start to have global ambitions, they will hopefully need people like me, people who are capable of navigating different business environments, speaking multiple languages, and having a certain sense of kind of what I call cultural fluency. The ability to be thrown into all sorts of different cultural environments and surviving those and navigating them really well and successfully, which I consider a very important skill these days. Like, let me make a side comment here. I was on a panel a year ago in Beijing, and someone asked me, like, what do you think is the most important skill young people should have when they graduate? And I think they wanted me to say like IT skills or something like that. But I said cultural fluency, and everyone was kind of surprised, like, what does that even mean? And I said, it means your ability to confront the unknown on eye level with respect and empathy, and not with judgment and a sense of disdain, but really with appreciation, and being able to get up to speed in that situation as quickly as possible and contribute and be successful in that environment. And I think, that's kind of, I think I'm in a good point now where throw me at any place in the world, give me any sort of task, and I think I can navigate it well and succeed because I've built a certain kind of level of cultural fluency, like a certain respect that I approach an unknown culture with. And I think that's very important, and it's a very important skill. The opposite is like just someone, coming to China and being like, oh man, people here are this, people here are that, like having, or like, I don't understand why it doesn't make sense to me that, with this attitude, that's kind of, it shows to me that you don't have any cultural fluency whatsoever.
That's a very, very good answer to that person's question. And just on Wednesday, I had Rodney Evans on the show, and we talked about how his kid is growing up here. And we talked about how he's an international kid. He's just set up for success where he's he's fluent in Chinese and English, and he will have this network.
I'm so jealous already.
Yeah, I'm extremely jealous when I hear that. Like, he's only 6, he's fluent in Chinese. All of the kids at his school are from all over the world. So like, when you have a network like that as your foundation, like, it adds to your idea of cultural fluency. Like, he's more culturally fluent than we could ever be because from day one he was set up. Yeah,
and it's not. By the way, it's not just language. Language facilitates it. My ability to go to Brazil and speak Portuguese with people obviously makes it easier for me to have empathy with them. But what cultural fluency really comes down to is respect, curiosity, and like kind of and empathy, really.
I would say open-mindedness.
Yeah.
I think if I had to put it in one word,
you can connect it with open-mindedness.
If I had to say one word, it would be open-mindedness, and that has been a big part of me growing as a person living in China. Because when I first got here, I was 23, and I would get livid by the construction that would go on downstairs and wake me up at 7 a.m. every day. I would get livid when people are shoving me out of the way to get onto the metro, or if there's people spitting in my ears. Like some things, like I don't want to get into that. I want to get into the fact that I just completely agree that once you decide to not get angry about those things and not just like question it, but rather question it in a positive way and be like, why is it that they do this thing?
Or question yourself, like, why do I think that this is wrong?
Why am I getting annoyed?
It's because you grew up in a different value system with a different value system.
Definitely.
Right?
And definitely. And I think that's how you can mature as a person, is through travel. And that's why I think I'm so fortunate to hold an American passport that allows me to travel. And some people don't even have the ability. Like if you're born in Syria right now, I don't think, so correct me if I'm wrong, maybe like some passports aren't even recognized as real anymore, and you can't even go anywhere. Imagine the hardship that you live not being physically or just have the ability to go. There's people
we're not even familiar with that kind of reality.
I can't imagine.
Exactly.
I can't imagine because people
I have a German passport. I can go anywhere the fuck I want.
We pretty much have the best passports in the world, at least top 10 or top 20 best passports in the world. And there's people who stay in their county, their 20 square miles for their whole life. It's very interesting for me to think about the juxtaposition between someone who has the option of the whole world in their hand but doesn't use it, and someone who's like fighting for their life and would give anything to leave that 20 square miles. It's fascinating to just know that we live in a world that has that problem. Like
Yeah.
it just shouldn't be a problem.
No, absolutely.
It bothers me. Anyways, I want to eventually somehow get to OFO because I'm so interested
Yeah.
in working at. You worked at OFO.
Yeah. So like this, I mean, I'm in China and I'm looking for Chinese companies going international. And I remember one of my speakers at business school was this woman who was working for Uber China at that point. And I'm curious, and I look her up and I realize, oh, she runs product at OFO. So I messaged her. She was an alum of the business school. Hey, like, I had an exchange with you in class last year, and I now see that you're working for OFO, and I'm in China, and I'm looking for kind of expansion roles, business development, internationalization roles. Does OFO maybe need someone like me? And before I knew it, she introduced me to the COO of the company.
Wow.
And before I knew it, then it was like, I got invited to go and show up for interviews. So OFO at that point, we're talking here about, what is that? This is like summer 2017, right?
17, okay.
Yeah. So they have started expanding into the US, Singapore, and England, and they have these grand plans to take over the world with bike sharing. And they're looking for someone who can help start and build and then run the business development division of the company. So this is where I come in. And I remember I flew to Beijing because I was in Shanghai. I actually really wanted to be in Shanghai. But I thought this opportunity is too good. So I flew to Beijing and I showed up at their office. I go into the meeting room, and the guy, the COO, as the door opens, he's looking at the screen. And he like realizes that I'm not on the screen, but I just walked into the room. And he's like, "Oh, you're here in person?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm actually in China. I'm in Beijing. I just came up for this interview." He's like, "Oh, I thought you're in the US or something."
I thought you were gonna like telephone in.
Yeah, exactly. That's why he was like looking at the screen, and he had like a dial-in number and whatnot. And I'm like, "No, I'm here in person." So we sat down and we had a conversation. And I came to that interview with like 30 slides on how I would take the company international. And I think he was very impressed. He liked what I was presenting to him. Part of it was aligned with the way he was looking at the business. Part of it wasn't. But he generally like appreciated me showing up to an interview prepared, which, by the way, is something I always recommend to anyone. If you're applying for a job, for a role, and you really want that, even when they don't ask you to do it, but come with a plan. Like actually say, here's 10 slides, or here's my 90-day plan, or whatever, on how I would take on this opportunity and the challenges I see and what I would do. I mean, I've hired people. When I see someone coming to an interview like that, I appreciate that so much more than someone who is just like, ask me like stupid questions about the role. Like, what if this happens or that happens? I'm like, you could have thought about it yourself.
So do you think you grew into that? Because let's go back to interviewing at Google.
Yeah.
Kind of the opposite.
It's the opposite.
So you grew into this mentality.
Yeah, very much so.
Okay.
And I think it's, when I interviewed at Google, this is like 8 years prior, I had never been a manager before, right? I was on the applicant side.
So now
right?
you have the perspective of a manager.
Exactly.
You know what they want to see.
Exactly. I'm getting, as a manager, I get resumes daily.
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
Right? So how do you want to stand out? Like this is like, again, about like the being different, the like being different than the mainstream, And I remember even for business school, at some point I recorded a video and I sent because at some point I was waitlisted doing my business school application, and I didn't want to just send them another email update. I was like, everyone is sending them email updates. Like after 2 months, like, this is the new things that happen in my life. You know what? I paid $100. I went to a movie studio and we recorded this like 90-second clip with like 3 camera angles with subtitles, because I would switch to, I was studying Italian back then, so I was like,
what the?
Yeah, so I was like, I spoke Italian on the video and with subtitles, and I was like, in hindsight, it's kind of ridiculous, but I sent the video as part of my application because I was like, I want it to be different, and I think it's very important nowadays. You want to be original and you want to be different. And coming back to the interview process, so I've hired a lot of people, and I understand you want to stand out. And I thought like I could stand out by just coming to that interview with a deck. So anyway, I got the job. And oh no, it was at the end of the interview, he's like, okay, you're here in Beijing, but kind of what office do you want to work out of? And I'm like, well, here. And he's like, yeah, I know you're here in Beijing, but like, what do you want? He didn't understand at that point, like I would want to be in China.
Really?
Right. And I no, listen, like this is headquarters, right? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, I would like to work here. And he's like, you would be our first and only non-Chinese employee. And I'm like, yeah,
that's
like
a good thing.
That's a good thing. That's a great thing. I want that. And he's like, okay, but you could work out of London or San Francisco. I'm like, I know, but I kind of want to experience that.
You want to, if you're, well, actually your position is to expand out of China.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that,
But the company, what I saw the company needed was someone to connect.
So you still need someone on the ground to be communicating.
Yeah, look. I mean, we hired a lot of international people outside of China, and we had a lot of Chinese people inside of China. But that creates a massive disconnect. Like you cannot. I think of a body. You cannot have a Chinese brain on an international body.
But you were also traveling a lot too.
I did.
Okay,
but
so then it doesn't matter where you're based out of if you're traveling if you need to.
No, but I think with Beijing being my base, I had the possibility to continuously go back or like be there. Be part of discussions, water cooler conversations, and so on and so forth. Build relationships that I would have otherwise not been able to build if I was fully based in London or anywhere else. So it was very important for me to have like that headquarter role and be that bridge. I remember like a lot of our foreign market leads, people who were running US or Southeast Asia or Europe, they looked at me as like, you are our link. Like without you, we wouldn't know really what's actually going on the floor, on the ground in China. And that was kind of my value add to the rest of the organization outside of China by being kind of that connector. So that's kind of, I saw that coming, and that's why it was really important for me. So same day I get a contract, I get an email. I open the PDF file. It was 4 pages. I scroll down. I think it's like maybe 2 pages Mandarin, 2 pages English, and it's all 4 pages Mandarin. I'm like, is that the work contract? So I bring in my roommate Shari, and she's American-born Chinese. She looks at it and like, yeah, that's your work contract. And I'm like, clearly they have never hired a foreigner in China before. So I read through it, and so Shari reads through it, and then she calls me and she's like, okay, I got like, what was it? I got 2 bad news and 1 good news for you. I'm like, okay, hit me with the good news first. Yeah. It's like, the good news, this is a real contract. I'm like, okay, so the bar is really low right now. Yeah. The bad news is, number 1, your salary was going to be, I don't remember, it was like a very Chinese salary.
Very low.
Very low.
Okay.
And I was like, there's no way. I just came out of business school. I got like
bills to pay,
loans to pay, and whatnot. Like I'm not gonna work. I cannot work on a Chinese salary. The other thing is like, she's like, you got 5 vacation days per year.
Oh yeah, welcome to China.
Yeah, welcome to China. I'm like, okay, this is not working. So I remember just calling up the CEO and telling him, listen, like, I think there's an opportunity for you guys to bring in more foreigners. But in order to do that, you also need to understand some of the needs that expats and foreigners have when they come work for a Chinese company.
Yes.
Like, I appreciate you have holidays like Mid-Autumn Festival and Chinese New Year, but these are random. These are random dates.
It's just different. So
it's
maybe,
very different.
So this is one of your first ones where maybe your first cultural difference where you did maybe butt heads a little bit.
This is a good point you say, because on the one hand, I was like, I want this experience to be as authentic as possible. And I want to be as close as possible. Yeah. Close as possible.
Let me re-step.
I know. But I still believe like, and I think my arguments were valid, you know, what is the idea of vacation? Like you go see family, but with 5 days a year, I cannot, like, it takes me a day or two to take
They have to look at you a little differently.
Exactly.
Like, as much as you have to appreciate what their culture is, they should, if they're inviting you, they should appreciate your culture.
I'm happy with the 996. I'm happy with working on Saturdays. I'm happy with kind of certain other expectations you have. But then there's like some pieces that we need to negotiate. So we were able to find solutions to those topics. And that's kind of how I got started working for OFO.
So yeah, getting to the end of the story, OFO fails.
Yeah.
OFO fails.
No.
OFO fails and Mobike is winning. No. Okay. So, but like,
I would agree though.
I love to learn from my failures. So I want to talk to you and I want you to tell me like Why did the company fail in your opinion? And what were the lessons you took away from that?
Yeah. So I think the company failed for a bunch of reasons, but one major one was it grew faster than it should have.
That's always a problem that's unexpected, growing faster.
Yeah.
Like, but maybe that for like someone who's not so like business savvy, they would be like, you're growing faster. How could that be a problem?
Look, it is a problem. Imagine you have operations in China. You have what is it? 10 million bikes doing like 30 to 35 million rides a day, and now you're thinking about taking these
Sorry,
bikes.
say that one more time.
Yeah.
10
10 million bikes,
doing how many rides a day?
35 million.
35 million a day. And
30 to 35 million.
and-
Yeah, at the peak, that's kind of what we
and
had.
for people who don't know, that's like maybe 1 RMB per ride.
Well, it was all
There's
subsidized.
tons of promotions going on.
So many promotions. Everything
In terms of
subsidized.
like, it was crazy. For people who don't know, we're talking about, tell me what OFO is. What is OFO?
OFO is bike sharing. So OFO are these yellow bicycles that
Yeah.
have a smart lock attached to it that you can unlock with your OFO app on your phone. And basically, you just take the bike wherever you find it. You have
Yeah.
a map. You can see where the bikes are located. You would unlock it. You would use it. You would pay for every 30 minutes or so. And then you just drop it wherever you want. There's no bike racks like City Bike or other city-run bike sharing programs, but you could just drop it anywhere you want, and whoever comes next can take that bike and ride it around.
Yeah.
Again, by unlocking it and then locking it at the end.
Sure.
So that's bike sharing. But we're talking here about a market that at its peak
10
had
million.
70 players in the market,
Different companies.
different companies.
Oh, okay.
So everyone was like, okay, this concept is amazing. Investors were absolutely excited about pouring money into this. So the joke was that it wasn't like if you wanted to start a bike sharing company, money wasn't the issue. Bikes weren't the issue. The issue was like, what color are you going to put on that bicycle? Because the cities were just rainbow littered.
Oh my God.
And jokingly enough, people were like, what's the difference between Mobike and OFO? And we're like, we're yellow and they're not.
Yeah, pretty much.
But so when you have 70 players in the market, when you have an investor like Didi or Alibaba coming and offering you money, you take that money.
Yeah.
And you take it at conditions that are not maybe the most favorable. And part of the reason why I think our CEO at that point, very young, I think he was 24, 25, 26 at that age. It was a company that was founded on campus. Like OFO is the pioneer of bike sharing in China.
Wow.
And it was a student project,
Which
if you
campus?
want, Beijing Beida University. And the thing is, when you can get money from one of the big players, Didi, a player with massive operational kind of reach when it comes to transportation, you take that money.
Yeah.
Because if you don't take it, one of your competitors will. And you don't
Right.
want your competitor to be funded by Didi or Alibaba.
Yeah, that's big money.
Yeah, so very very soon it was becoming clear that a lot of these players are dying out. They're not reaching a certain scale they needed to have to become profitable, or even just like make the system work, because
Yeah.
you need to have enough bicycles in a dense part of the city. And then you need to have operation personnel that kind of picks up the bicycles and redistributes them.
Yes.
So you need to have like a minimum number of bicycles, and so on and so forth. And so players started to die out, and it was becoming clear that the two main players in this market are Mobike and OFO. And OFO was kind of in the Alibaba Didi camp. Mobike was in the Tencent kind of camp, which here in China are the kind of the two main rivals. Alibaba and kind of Tencent, they very, very often, when they're not fighting each other themselves, they're kind of competing.
And just a very, very quick background. Those
Yeah.
are just two tech companies.
These are two tech companies.
Just two
yeah.
tech companies.
So-
just like we got like,
Google and Facebook, maybe. You
yeah,
can say that a
we
little
have
bit.
Alibaba and Tencent out here.
Yeah, exactly. Tencent is mostly known for WeChat, the chat program, and Alibaba is mostly known for basically Alibaba.com or
Yeah.
like Taobao,
Okay.
which is an online
It's the
e-commerce
Amazon
platform.
of China.
Yeah, and multiple Amazons. if you want.
Yeah, it's so much.
Now, okay, so these two players are competing, and you were asking about failures. So I think one problem we had early on was kind of taking money from Didi, and with that, they negotiated a veto right on our board
Oh yeah.
when it came to financial decisions. So
Okay.
they were able to come and say like, we don't approve of this fundraising, or we don't approve of this kind of money that you're getting from another investor or whatnot. So that's kind of what you could do with a veto, or you could say, we're not agreeing to you expanding into certain countries. So that was one problem, that you had a very powerful investor with a lot of own interests, because suddenly you see bike sharing, you see bike sharing cutting into ride sharing.
Oh,
right?
right.
Because
Okay.
anything under
so for
3
people who don't
kilometers-
know, Didi is like the. Oh, did we already say this? Didi is the Uber of
Didi
China.
is the Uber of China.
Okay.
They do ride sharing.
Yeah.
And they suddenly realize, oh, like under 3 kilometers, we're losing business to bike sharing.
Wow.
So that's also why it was important for them to make that investment, right? And say, we want to have a stake in this kind of transportation game on bicycles.
That's fascinating to think about, because like I think we already talked about this when we first met, and the first thing I said was like, that could almost be a conspiracy theory to them, like, okay, like we know we're just gonna just kill this company, and a crazy way to kill it is by basically buying it and killing it. Not that crazy, actually. That happens probably a lot.
It kind of had a similar outcome. Now, listen to what happened. So Didi is investing, and Didi is looking at this and thinking itself like, you guys are losing so much money, and so is Mobike. So kind of the investors come together and they're like, hey, we're spending billions here on two companies, Mobike and Ofo, that already have 90% plus of the market. It would only make sense, and I agree with that, to kind of merge the companies and create one player.
They're two big players.
Exactly.
Why not just combine?
Exactly. But it wasn't that easy, because kind of you merge the players, and then you have the big question of like, which payment form is top of wallet? Meaning when someone takes a ride with that new player, is the payment option that is shown first, is it WeChat Pay or is it Alipay? So that's kind of why you have Alibaba, Tencent kind of butting their heads in the market, because when you have a popular app that has payments, it matters what comes first. Whatever comes first makes about 70% of the the transactions. Whatever comes second makes about 30%, because people just like overcome the barrier of like changing and switching, right? So it is a big question. So investors already had a hard time coming together and making that kind of move. And then they were pushing our CEO, Ofo CEO, and Mobike CEO to sit together at the table and have a discussion about merging. But both CEOs walked away, especially our CEO, saying like, I don't want that. Like we don't want to merge with Mobike. And then Didi said, well, if you're not merging, we're just gonna not sign the next fundraising round. So now imagine this is a company that is burning money like unbelievable. There's no words for like how much money.
Spending too much money.
Spending way too much money. No control over how much. I did business trips. I didn't have to ask for approval, nor did I have anyone look at my expense reports. I was just like, here's my expense reports, pay me that.
Wow.
It was crazy. But this is kind of how the company was operating. The idea was like, money, we're not going to run out of money ever.
There's just too much money to fail.
Yeah.
Was maybe the theory.
Exactly. Because we were about to raise $1.8 billion. And Didi came and said no.
Wow.
So they just didn't sign on the paper. So we weren't able to raise that money.
Shit.
So
that's just mind-boggling that they could, that an investor can say no to more money. Like,
because they wanted to put pressure on us.
Wow. But like, let's say, like, how can you learn from this situation? How can you avoid that in the future? Is it possible? Like, is maybe the solution not giving an investor that much power?
Well, giving an investor a veto right is definitely not a smart idea.
So maybe like if you were to renegotiate, if you were to go back in time, you would try and make it so they don't have veto power.
Well, I wasn't part of that, right? But if I had a startup,
I would not. You were.
Yeah. If I had a startup,
ability,
I would not give my investor a veto right.
Okay. So that's just like kind too much power.
It's too much power.
Okay.
Because then you're really just, and this is also something I learned about Chinese money and Chinese investors. I feel the money you get here comes with a lot of kind of conditions and a lot of expectations. And often the investors don't see themselves just as your capital provider, but also start having certain asks and demands. And I think we experienced that with Ofo. When Didi suddenly wanted us to go a certain direction and merge and whatnot. So here's what happens next. Diddy blocks and vetoes the fundraise.
Okay.
And our entire business is built on the assumption we're getting these like $1.8 billion, and we're not. So
Big
all
loss.
kind of alarms go off, and suddenly the company, it wasn't very obvious. Like it took some time for the news to trickle down and for us all to realize like there's something happening and whatnot, right? It wasn't like, oh, they didn't sign it this morning and now it was like it was very slow.
Slow, yeah.
Yeah, and you realize at some point kind of, your vendors are starting to complain that their bills are not being paid, and
Ooh, doggy.
and then you realize that maybe your expense report that you submitted, you used to get paid out like the week after, and now it takes a month, and like stuff like that, right? I was very close to the action actually. So and this is like kind of the advantage that I had of being in China. I saw things front row as they were happening, and basically our CEO said, okay, if you're not giving me the money, I'm just gonna kick out anyone that you, Diddy, appointed to my company as an executive. So we had a few executives that came from Diddy, and basically our CEO David said, you guys out from one day to the next. So he kicked out like 3 people, pretty senior people. So for Diddy's CEO, that was a big kind of slap in the face.
Wow.
That was a great loss of face, if you want. So he then said, you know what, this is war. So what Diddy did then was go and acquire the third largest player in the market, Blue Go-Go,
Okay.
which had just gone bankrupt 2 weeks prior.
Wow.
So all their assets were up for discount. So they just bought that player and said, listen, so far we were offering OFO in the Diddy app, and now we're going to start offering our own bike sharing. And then we said, wait, hold on. We have an investor that blocked our fundraising and that is now competing with us.
That's just shady business.
It is
man.
difficult. It was, man. I don't want to say that's China, but to a certain degree, that's stuff that can happen here.
That's crazy.
One of my partners, I was negotiating a deal in Southeast Asia with one of the leading ride-sharing companies in Southeast Asia. The idea was to get us into their app, so that when you order kind of an Uber or Grab or Gojek in Southeast Asia, you could also like just order the OFO bicycle. He said, Omid, I trust you, but the Chinese you work with, they're ruthlessly competitive.
Yeah.
And I remember that, ruthlessly competitive. That really stuck with me.
Yeah. It's a fair way to put it.
It is.
Ruthlessly competitive.
Ruthlessly competitive. I would totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Now, so that's kind of, that was beginning of the end. We were able to agree, I think it was legally, agree on a threshold of, I think, 1.2 billion that we were able to raise without necessitating, like not needing the veto.
Still a fuck ton of money.
The approval. Yeah. But at that point, no one in China wanted to give you money anymore because everyone's like,
they just know the rumors.
yeah.
It's not even rumors. It's like they just know what's going on.
They know what's going on. No one in China was like, you guys are a mess. Like, we don't want to get into this.
It's incredible you somehow got 1.2 still.
Well, no, we didn't get that money.
Oh, you never got it?
No, it was a threshold. We were allowed to go fundraise as much.
Oh, okay. So they were just blocking a threshold.
Yeah, they were blocking.
So it wasn't like you had 1.8
no,
in the bank. It was just a threshold. They were
yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense.
So now we want to raise 1.2, but no one wants to give us money.
No one wants to give you money. Yeah.
So we have to change strategy. At that point, we were already in like, I don't know, 18 or so countries. You asked me, by the way, about failure. I think one big failure, and I remember there was part of my presentation when I went for the interview. I said, we have 3 countries. We have probably like, I don't know, 8 cities in these 3 countries. Let's see which city model works best. Perfect it.
Yeah.
And then replicate the best model. But no, that's not what OFO did. I think, what the company ended up doing was just open up any city that was willing to welcome bike sharing. And I felt like every city had to start from scratch, and every city had to figure things out from scratch. And there was normally before you take something to 50 cities, you would want to make sure whatever you replicate, whatever you export into 50 cities works. Yeah. It's perfected. Or at least if not perfected, it's like it's working.
It's well oiled. It's
but it wasn't. And I think that was a really big issue when it comes to the operational execution of how the leadership decided to go forward.
Yeah, I personally think it works phenomenally well in China, at least Shanghai for some reason. Just talking about bike sharing in general, because the way the sidewalks are set up here and the way the people go about the city, they don't mind that there's these bikes littered around the city. It's not really an issue. And if you compare that to a place like I've been to London and I'm from New York, that wouldn't fly. Like these bikes would literally just get picked up off the street. In my opinion, in New York City, they would be picked up and just people would walk away with them.
Well, I think it has.
Did you guys do research into that?
Yeah,
Like,
of course.
cultural
Yeah,
research.
Oh, 100%. Like we had a big team we hired for was kind of just government relations, just like
yeah, of course, you have to be
lobbying.
tight with the
Like we
government.
worked with a lot of lobbyists that would just go from like municipality to municipality and try to like kind of lobby for changing laws that are in favor of ride sharing and
Yeah.
the number of bikes you can deploy and whatnot. But that's a big issue. I think part of it is just because in China, you don't I don't think citizens are always empowered the way they are in other markets, in other countries. If people don't like something here, like if the government says this is how we do it, this is how things are being done,
Yeah.
right? But in a city like London, where you have, I don't know, what is it, 30 or so boroughs, or I don't know how many boroughs they have. I think 30
In London, I don't know.
yeah, let's say they have like a bunch of boroughs,
Okay.
and each borough like has its own kind of agency and decision power, and then people.
Oh, you're saying like counties, like districts.
Counties, boroughs, district. Yeah,
district
yeah,
is the word that
exactly.
I
Okay.
know. Okay.
Okay, I think they call it boroughs.
Okay. Maybe in Germany.
Maybe in London.
Oh no, you're saying. Oh, that's what. Okay. Okay. For clarity's sake, in America we call it district, or in
Yeah.
China they say district.
Okay, probably.
Now I know what you're talking about. So-
I'm not talking about states. I'm talking
yeah,
about like
yeah. You're talking about like different governments, like local governments.
local small
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And but if residents don't like something, they protest. They write letters and whatnot. I don't think people in China do that.
No.
They don't necessarily
go with
feel
the flow.
empowered. They don't necessarily feel empowered to speak up against top-down decisions, right?
Well, I think that's extremely powerful for getting shit done. Like stuff just moves here, and that's going to put them at an
I
advantage.
couldn't agree more. And I think that comes back to like this cultural fluency thing. I think a lot of people come here and look at this model and like, this is not good. Like people should be able to protest. People should be able to, censorship is not like freedom of speech. Why is this censorship is not good? And from my value system, I would agree with these statements, but then having spent time here and having approached these things, trying to like see things on their eye level and having empathy, like, how else can you take a country of 1.3, 1.4 billion
Yeah.
and lift 500 million plus people out of poverty in such
Yes.
short amount of time? How can it wouldn't have these things could have not happened if the government didn't have so much top-down kind of iron fist type
Yeah.
control. I'm not defending it, but I'm
Yeah.
just giving you some context that, or not you, but the listener here,
listeners,
that
yeah.
there's a reason why China was able to do what it did, and it is a large part because of the way how the government rules.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more. I think it's interesting though, because when you look at business the way like Chinese to Chinese they do business, there's this whole culture behind like showing face and actually going slow. Like that's what I feel, like you have to be friends before you can do business. But that's actually the opposite that the way the government operates. So I'm confused myself as to how that's possible. Would you agree?
Yes, but I think these are different things. I think the guanxi, which
I'm talking about
translates
guanxi,
into
yes.
relationship, that's a translation word, but basically it describes the concept of kind of the kind of equity you have with someone to do business with. I don't within the government that exists.
Yes,
I think.
yes.
But when it comes to when we talk about government making decisions that are being forced down, top down, I don't think guanxi plays a role in that.
Yeah, it's
These are
just
different-
like
these are
follow
different things.
orders. It's a different system.
It's a different government system, right?
Okay. Well, getting back to OFO a little bit, and we talked about the failures. We see why it kind of went wrong. There's obviously some successes that happened along the way. Something I don't know how involved with you were with this particular aspect, but something I find very fascinating about ride sharing is like they're collecting tons of data when you like where people are picking up the bikes from the most and where they're dropping them off and what they're using it for. And did you have any insight into the data they were collecting?
Yeah. I mean, look, I remember the day I started, I had this image in my mind that I would walk into this almost like minority
Matrix.
report, matrix style
Yeah.
office with
Yeah.
screens and people just like crunching data and like a life map. Because I mean, I worked at Google. We had all these like nice kind of displays showing what people were searching in real time and where searches were coming from and whatnot. And I was expecting to see that because, like, you got all that data. Like, what are you going to do with that? None of that, man. Nothing.
Really?
No.
They really didn't use it like
It
that.
wasn't there. No. And I think I up to today, I believe that was a big mistake that they struggled as a hardware company and didn't really understand how to turn that data to their advantage. Now they're trying, like they still exist. Like there's a team of about 50 or so people in Beijing still trying to pivot somehow because they make money with the rights now. Now it's not as subsidized as it used to be. So there's some money coming in. Some of the bikes are still rideable, even though our CEO is blacklisted and
Really?
classic Chinese
Wow.
blacklist. But my point is like nowadays they're trying to like sell, I don't know, insurance programs and kind of loans because they're like, we have all these millions of people that still use the app and these are eyeballs and like, can we sell kind of high margin products to them? Because if you sell to someone an insurance or a financial product, the money you make on that is really high because whoever buys these products, they tend to have a very high lifetime value.
Okay.
They stay with these companies for very long. So the margin you make on the sale is really high in the beginning. So OVO is trying to monetize in different ways. And nowadays they're trying to, I think, use the data a little bit more to target certain products to certain people. But overall, it was a mess. I don't think they did a good job at taking that data and building products around it or services around it.
Yeah, because I think every company today has to somewhat be a technology company as well. Like you have to, like, for foresight and expansion and being the best business you can, you should be using technology to your advantage. And the first thing that comes to mind in my eyes when you see that, okay, like we're going to gather data, like where, like it's very simple even to know, like you put the bikes by the metro and then people are going to bike home from the metro. Like that's the biggest use that I had.
Yeah.
If you were to try and gather, that's like the easiest one. And I actually don't know if I can think of much more metrics I would want to have other than where do we put these bikes to make sure that people are using them the most. If off the top of your head, is there any other data you would want to collect if you could about people using these bikes?
Let me think for a second.
Yeah. Like for example, Facebook, they collect incredible amounts of data. Like I don't even know how. With a bike and in a physical space, it's a little different. So I'm not even sure. Maybe there isn't anything else.
I think a lot of the data that was really relevant was like pickup locations, drop off locations, routes that people take.
Oh, routes. Yeah.
As a way also to.
Yeah. What route did they take to get to where they're going versus like they could have gone this way or maybe even are they breaking the law? Like you could probably track that
for
kind
city
of stuff.
planning.
Oh yeah. And you can sell the data for future like.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There's a ton of stuff that you can do. Super interesting. Okay, cool. So yeah, that we crushed a ton of stuff about business, but I want to talk to you about photography because that's I think how I met you through Instagram. I saw your page. You might have reached out to me. I can't remember. How did you get into photography past filmmaking? Because we already talked about that.
So there was filmmaking and then there was my undergrad degree, and that's kind of when I dropped it and I wasn't doing that much. But then when I started with Google, one of the first they had this thing of like giving employees Christmas gifts. And one of the first Christmas gifts I got. So I started in November and then I instantly got that Christmas gift in December, which was a smartphone. And I didn't have a smartphone until then. This is like, I'm talking 2009.
So like some type of Android phone?
What was it? Yeah, it was Android 1.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you still have it?
No.
That'd be a good one to
wish.
Keep. I have a collection of iPhones.
I can show
that.
you after. Yeah. I see
I
that.
love collecting the iPhones.
I wish I had. And then kind of with that phone, I realized, I'm taking a lot of pictures all the time. And I soon realized not only that I enjoy doing that, but I'm also like somewhat good at that. And I think it all started taking off with the launch of Instagram for Android because Instagram had launched on iOS, I think in 2010, 11.
Okay.
And then 2011 was when they launched for Android. And before that, it was already launched on iOS for over a year.
Okay.
And when they launched on Android, I started using it and started posting pictures and building an audience and having people really kind of appreciate my perspective and the composition of the photographs that I was putting out there.
And you wouldn't call yourself a photographer
At that
before
point, not at all.
You
no.
were learning off your phone.
Just learning, going with it and improving. But I think I've always had a very visual eye.
Yeah.
And an appreciation for symmetry and lines and just like just an ability to maybe capture a certain composition in a way that other people wouldn't see it. I think one of the biggest compliments someone can give you is like, oh my God, like this picture is so great. And I walk by that place every day myself, but I've never seen it the way you see it.
I've never
right?
seen it the way you've seen
Exactly.
it.
When someone says that,
Yes.
that's kind of, I find that's one of
That's a
the
good
ultimate compliments. And so I got into photography. I built my audience, and this is Instagram's early days. I got featured on kind of, this is one of the users you should follow lists, and started hanging out with other photographers who were really popular. So whenever they posted kind of a picture with me, some of their followers would swap over, et cetera, et cetera. That's kind of over the years, I ended up getting to 30,000 followers. And I've posted over like 4,700 photos on Instagram over the years. And it's at some point I realized, listen, I'm really good at smartphone photography. I don't even own a camera.
To this day?
To this day.
Wow.
Because look, this is actually really important to think about. I made a bet 8 years ago, and I'm still on this bet, which is like, your smartphone camera is going to be so good one day, it's going to do 99% of the pictures that you need. Okay. And we're already very close. I would say it's 95%. And I would probably also predict it today, right? And I would also predict that in maybe 10 years, it's not a smartphone, it's a different type of of device, right? It might be a glass, it might be a lens, it might be whatever. Like, I don't know whether what it's going to be, but I don't think that in 10, 20, 30 years, we're going to have smartphones the way that we do today. I think the device is going to change. Now, my point is, okay, so I was like, okay, I believe in photography, and I believe in the future of smartphone photography. So I want to become the best at that. And that's what I decided to invest into smartphone photography.
Wow.
Educated myself, started following a lot of great photographers, analyzed their pictures, tried to understand what makes them great, replicated some of those concepts, improved my sense of composition. And only, recently I decided to make a class out of that, kind of a master class if you want. So I had a camera team fly in from Germany here to China. And we spent 3 days just recording in Shanghai all my lessons, which ended up becoming like a 2-hour class about photography. Anything from, how should you think about photography? How should you think about kind of the camera that you carry around with you? Like, this camera, you're going to have a camera on you for probably going forward every day of your life.
Yeah.
And you're probably going to take pictures every day of your life. So why not try to become better at that?
Sure.
That's a daily skill. So why not invest into something that you do daily? That's why I did this class, and it's a really successful class that I'd like to plug here.
Of course.
So yeah, I would love people to sign up and take it. It's fun. It's very interactive. It's taking place here in Shanghai, and you can just like take it whenever you want.
I want to talk about, like, you're a phone photographer, because, a lot of people, it's somewhat of a stereotype, but like even today, like, people are still into film photography, and it's like, you couldn't be, photographers tend to look down on phone photographers, and I don't have a yes or no as to what, like, I don't want to judge your craft. I think it's very interesting that you're owning the fact that I am just a phone photographer.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on, like, phone versus, I'm sure you've used an actual camera before. In my opinion, I know the best camera that's with you, the best camera is the one that you have on you. So that's why I see your perspective.
Yeah.
So I want you to talk about, like, DSLRs versus camera, like a iPhone camera.
Look, can DSLRs take better pictures than a phone? Generally, yes. Do you need it? No.
Yeah.
And it really comes down to, do you have the camera with you? Yes or no?
Yeah, that's
really what it comes down to. And your smartphone, you just do, and it's getting better. And it's getting like, you're gonna have a convergence of, like, I don't know, I think it's gonna be around 99%. I think 99. Not saying the iPhone or a smartphone is gonna be 99% as good as a DSLR, but it's gonna cover 99% of your photography needs.
Yes.
That 1% is what, like, even the headshot nowadays, you don't need an DSLR camera. You can take incredible headshots with
Yeah.
portrait mode.
Yeah, I guess if you want to get technical, the advantages that DSLRs have versus an iPhone is one, the sensor size. A sensor size can dictate like how big you can blow up the image. So that's one thing. And number two, the ability to change lenses. So right now on a phone, you only have one fixed lens, and that's actually changing as they're adding just what they do is they add more cameras
Actually,
with different focal lengths.
Okay, funny. With the lenses, I think that's its disadvantage.
Really?
Yeah, you need to buy lenses.
Mm.
You need to carry lenses. You need to change lenses. This is you have phones nowadays that have 4 different lenses. The Huawei phones,
Yes.
Incredible zoom. It has 4 different lenses. One of them is just a telezoom, a telelens, right? So I think the lens technology is just becoming better and smaller, and I don't think lenses will be an advantage of DSLRs. I think it will be one of its disadvantages. And on the chip thing, yeah, you can take bigger pictures, but nowadays I worked with Apple, I worked with Airbnb, I work with them on different campaigns, UPS and other companies. You can you get really far in terms of blowing up an image size when it comes to iPhone pictures or smartphone pictures, and it's only gonna get better. And that's the thing, that's the bet I was making. It's only gonna get better.
Yeah, I agree. Like technically it will get better. I'm just like, I actually really do love film photography, and there's just a feeling that you get when you shoot film. So, and like, not to
You developed it?
Yeah, I work with I go to a place and I get it developed,
Yeah.
and I enjoy that process.
And
That's-
that's totally fair.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying it's gonna replace everything, and it shouldn't. Film photography is a great craft, and I hope it continues to exist. But it's when it comes to your needs. Like if you say your need is like you want to have that as a hobby and you think it's cool and whatnot, go for it, right? But your daily needs, the 99% are going to be covered with your smartphone.
Right. And I think both can coexist.
Of course.
I don't carry my film camera on me all the time, but I do carry my phone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you have YouTube and you have Instagram stories. Like, no, I'm like, just because YouTube exists or came on the scene doesn't mean any other video format won't be on the scene, right? Like there's always coexistence of different things.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's really cool what you're doing. It sounds like, who would you say your target audience is for?
Anyone who has a smartphone camera and wants to improve picture taking. Think about how to make most out of your camera, how to think about different types of composition, how to make your pictures more original, more interesting, how to edit your pictures. Just give them a better look and feel after you're done taking pictures. I think photography is nowadays just like 50% of the product. The other 50% comes with like the touches, the editing, the look and feel that you create with the image that you took. There's just so many layers to it. And I think, in my class, I talk about editing and the way how I edit and how I think about it, and how I also storytell. Like, it's not just about taking a picture. It's also about sharing it and how you build an audience around kind of your photography. So I talk about a bunch of these topics. I want to say one more thing about owning it. At some point I decided, I don't care what other people think. I'm just going to become a smartphone photographer. I'm going to become one of the best. And I started hosting exhibitions and working with brands and publishing books and whatnot. And at some point I realized, you can go into a niche, but you can go really deep at the same time. And I think that's just general advice. Like, you don't always need to go with what the mainstream is. Sometimes you just go with something smaller, but become really good at it. So you take it to the next level.
That's fascinating. Well, listen, Omid, I think you're doing amazing things. I'm super excited to see where this goes. Can you tell one more time where people can find your photography course?
Yeah, so it's actually on my Instagram bio. The link is on my bio. My Instagram is my full name, Omid Scheybani.
Okay.
Just Omid Scheybani. And go to my bio, click on the link, purchase the class, and get started.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Boom. That's it. Thanks so much for listening. I really am excited about how this podcast is turning out, but I can always improve. I would love to hear your feedback. If you want to reach out and suggest I talk about something specific or have a specific guest on, you can email me at shanghaiobserved@gmail.com. That is shanghaiobserved@gmail.com. Also, this episode of the podcast is brought to you by shanghaiobserved.com/shop. That's right, I'm plugging my own shop. It means so much that people already buy my stuff. If you want to support me, you can go to shanghaiobserve.com and buy a shirt or whatever's on there right now. Even if you buy a sticker, it really supports and helps me do what I love to do. I owe it all to you guys. Thank you so much for listening and supporting me. Thanks a bunch. Peace, guys. Also, if you enjoyed the intro and outro music, it was made by my brother, Danny Greenberg. You can go and check out his beats at soundcloud.com/estoric, ESTORIC. Okay, that's it for now. Peace.